last weekend and have declined to answer questions from the Journal-Sentinel. And the Brewers lost to the Rangers yesterday, final score 1-0. They have today off, then start a 2-game series with the Twins tomorrow at home. Outside tonight, rain, likely lows in the mid-60s. Tomorrow, partly sunny with highs around 78 in Milwaukee, 73 in Madison. For Wednesday, partly sunny with a chance of rain and highs around 73 in Milwaukee, 67 in Madison. You're listening to WRRD and WTTN.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Happy Monday, Dominic.
Happy Monday, Crudy, part-timer. Welcome back to the radio station, man.
Buddy, did you miss me just a little bit? A skosh.
Of course, man. I had a good time, although, Crudy, in your absence, lots of fine guests. But, you know, hell, another day, Crudy, and you go away for a couple of days, and look what happens.
What'd you do?
Come on, man.
Epstein, dead. Parent suicide, although I've seen some, let's just call them conspiracy theories, Dom.
Well, yeah, Trump is spreading one of them.
So the headlines today, if I understand them, Trump is anti-endangered species, he's anti-immigration, and he's anti-Clinton.
I guess?
Or at least he's supportive of the anti-Clinton conspiracies. Dominic, this was troubling news, to say the least. Epstein. And I guess all in all, I don't mean to seem so gleeful about a dead man, but whether he rotted in jail or rotted in hell, you know, makes no never mind to me, quite frankly. And I think ultimately, you know, there might have been some sort of incentive for this man to try and get out of jail eventually by turning state's evidence. But I think ultimately his perhaps copious and meticulous diaries might really be what we're all looking for. There's diaries.
Come on.
Lordy, I hope there's tapes, Dom.
The man died in custody. He was recently, and apparently until recently, under suicide watch. All right,
Until he wasn't, and then he died.
Then he died of an apparent suicide. So this is either total incompetence by those involved, or it's corruption and conspiracy.
Don't worry about anything, Frankie Five Angels.
And either way, it's Donald Trump's Justice Department. It's Barr's Justice Department. The buck stops where? It's their Justice Department. How the hell is this guy, who apparently, if you believe any of the reporting out there was a suit filed years ago, Crudy eventually dropped, that implicated Trump himself in rape with a child provided to him apparently by Epstein. Now, that case was apparently withdrawn, but I saw Hartman retweeted like 6 pages of the legal document filing today for some reason. You know, does this shed any different light on these scenarios? Either way, Epstein apparently involved with pimping out children to all sorts of powerful people. Already on a suicide watch. If this isn't the guy that you keep 8 eyeballs on all day, every day, then there's nobody worth watching. Suicide watch does not mean, to my understanding, and I'm not in Law and Order, mean watch the guy kill himself.
Are we clear it's suicide, Tom? My understanding, there is no video. There is no evidence to show the moment of mortality. And I'm not, I'm not looking for that precisely, but some answers.
So you want to see a body?
Yeah, I mean, come on. Really? We have, in this country, the Pentagon has blimps floating high above the earth over Wisconsin right now so they can surveil, and when a crime happens, they take in all information and they can rewind it. The Pentagon is doing that to us domestically, and we're not even accused of pimping out children to powerful men and women. And this just happens, and Epstein, in custody, hangs himself.
I'm sure it's just coincidence, Tom.
Come on. Well, then we need to perhaps recalibrate what our priorities are. Perhaps the Pentagon should take those blimps down and spend a little more time in the jail cells in New York City.
Now, when the president of the United States can tweet out his conspiracy theories, Tom, shouldn't we be able to tweet out or perhaps, fabricate a few of our own?
I mean, I guess.
Who do you think
so
offed
low.
Epstein?
The bar is so low. But no, I mean, I actually would think that we have some credibility, unlike this president. So no, I'm not going to go out there and start tweeting out conspiracies, but either it's incompetence or it's corruption. Either way, it's under this administration, and I want to know who's going to do what to get to the bottom of it. No cameras? Are you kidding me? This is an absolute joke. And when you see the conspiracy theorists on the right and the left, you know this is problematic.
I always like to go to a tabloid for the source. Yeah. The Sun UK, Jeffrey Epstein kept meticulously detailed diaries of his friendships, which could come back to haunt his powerful pals, reports claim. Now, this is my thought. Did they silence Epstein effectively by, either allowing his suicide or killing him? Or is there a greater story that will come out? Here's what the Sun is reporting. The billionaire pedo, that must be a British term for, child sex trafficker, who died from an apparent suicide on Saturday, was once friends with Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump. I got to thumb down a little bit here. He is understood to have kept a secret diary detailing his friendships with the rich and famous as an insurance policy, according to the Mirror. Former financier Epstein, 66, is believed to have killed himself in jail days after being taken off suicide watch. His death came hours after a Manhattan court released a 1,200-page dossier detailing lurid abuse allegations against him. The explosive papers also named some of the world's elite leaders and politicians. They were unsealed in a legal tangle between Brit socialite Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's ex-lover, and Virginia Giuffre. Miss Giuffre is alleged that she was procured by Madame Maxwell, 57, the daughter of disgraced tycoon Robert Maxwell, as a teenage sex slave for Epstein. I read on here, Dom, from the Sun UK. U.S. court papers also allege the Duke of York touched a woman's breast as she sat on his lap and played with the spitting image puppet of him. Joanna Schorberg alleged he touched her breasts in 2001 at Epstein's New York home, according to court papers. In the document, Schorberg said, "I just remember someone suggesting a photo, and they told us to get on the couch, and so Andrew and Virginia sat on the couch, and they put the puppet on her lap, and so then I sat on Andrew's lap, and I believe on my own volition, and they took the puppet's hand and put it on Virginia's breast, and so Andrew put his on mine," she said, saying it was done in a joking manner. Buckingham Palace strenuously denies the allegations. Here's the important part of this report, Tom, and my opinion. There's diaries. And some of the allegations that have come off over the course of the weekend and from the court releases include, named in the court papers on Friday, along with Prince Andrew, 59, were former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson and financier Glenn Dublin. Ms. Giuffre had previously claimed that a foreign president and a well-known prime minister were caught up in the Sword affair. A source has since claimed Epstein forged relationships with the rich and famous because it brought him protection. He kept in a diary a meticulous detail in case he ever needed it, the insider told the Mirror. One former congressman said there are a lot of people breathing a huge sigh of relief. Now Jeff is dead. They should hold their breath for a long time to come. It ain't over. Is it over, Dom? It's not over.
No, of course it's not over. But I don't want to move along quite yet, right? I mean, someone needs to answer some questions here. And when the man in charge, when Trump is out there, retweeting conspiracy theorists, trying to tie the Clintons to Epstein's death, who was technically under his administration's hold, I would say, his Department of Justice. How do you reach over to Clinton? What has this got to do with anything regarding the Clintons?
Lock her up. Lock her up. It's a typical foil. It's really for the sake of his followers, right? It's a thoughtless drop of name. Well, there's guilt. There's something negative, so let's make the association with Hillary Clinton. It's a simple conclusion for Donald Trump to reach. But we got the Attorney General, Tom, out there being very, very, defensive perhaps today. And accusatory even. Shocked, I tell you. Well, let's get to some of the sound of Bill Barr, your buddy and mine. The Attorney General of the United States, but seems a lot like Trump's personal lawyer. But what did he say today, speaking at the National Fraternal Order of Police Conference in New Orleans? Fancy Brian, couldn't need your help. Bill Barr, cut number 80, if you would. Very important case, this Epstein case.
This sex trafficking case was very important to the Department of Justice and to me personally.
Right up until the time the accused offed himself in jail.
How could that possibly be? How can that be? If there is any person in the entire prison complex that should have been guarded, it is this man. If this was so important to you, Barr, why weren't you there? Sitting on a chair, staring in the window, making sure this guy who has potentially all sorts of information on lots of very rich and powerful people, make sure he didn't off himself or get himself killed.
They couldn't just have a guy watch on camera, Tom. My understanding, they do have video monitoring, although no video apparently of the suicide.
So weird how that happens. But Barr,
very, very weird.
He's all about this. Let's hear some more of Barr. Let's do cut 81.
This case was important to the victims who had the courage to come forward and deserved the opportunity to confront the accused in the courtroom.
As long as it wasn't Trump.
But not important enough for you to make sure that your Justice Department protected this man from others or himself. It was very important to the victims, and I'm appalled. Cut 82, please, Brian.
I was appalled, and indeed the whole department was, and frankly, angry to learn of the MCC's failure to adequately secure this prisoner. We are now learning of serious irregularities at this facility that are deeply concerning and demand a thorough investigation.
Well, he sounds downright angry, doesn't he?
I can tell. And of course, another big issue with this man is he has no credibility. Remember, this is the same guy that said, no collusion, no obstruction in the Mueller report when he came out, got ahead of this thing for weeks, and kind of, ruined the whole rollout of that to continually give the president an opportunity to, parrot Barr's own words in defense. But I digress. One of the problems with corrupt bastards is that even if they're saying something genuine, even if they're saying something that you believe in matters, to me, it matters, Crudy. What happened in this case? What is going to happen? Who will be held responsible? I cannot believe that Barr will be the man to mete out the justice. Let's do one more. Barr, 84.
The victims deserve justice, and they will get it.
85.
Let me assure you that this case will continue on against anyone who was complicit with Epstein. Any co-conspirators should not rest easy. We will get to the bottom of what happened, and there will be accountability.
That gives me absolutely no confidence.
Zero.
Not one iota.
Zero.
They didn't want to get to the bottom, Dom. They wanted Epstein dead and buried. And perhaps he very soon shall be literally dead and buried. and no longer perhaps an embarrassment to the President of the United States, or, maybe the Clinton machine, or maybe Michael Corleone reached out from the beyond. I'm not sure exactly who would be motivated to have Epstein off, Dom, but you think the Justice Department would have been motivated to keep the man alive. And if he was on suicide watch, it should have been like a toddler in the deep end of the pool. Somebody needs to be watching the kid.
Right.
And what do you know? Ends up dead. And certainly not a tragedy. No one's lighting a candle for Epstein today. But it really undermines your confidence in this entire Department of Justice. We got a fine guest coming up in the next hour. He will restore your confidence in the Devil's Advocates. Jim Santelle, he's a fine guest. Join us in the 4 o'clock hour. Also, Jessie Opoien, the opinion editor at the Cap Times. I'll tell you all about the Democratic Bachelorettes. What do I mean? She'll tell us. About 4:30, your calls perhaps next. 844-967-2789. Crudy's back to work. Somebody's dead.
Yeah, you just produce a corpse and...
You have incompetent, totally, grossly incompetent leadership at the top.
That's a Sicilian message. It means Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
Just remember, what you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening.
Well, no, I'm no lawyer, but I do believe that's a violation of my rights.
A bit snitty.
Hey guys, this is Maggie Dawn, host of Dawn of the Resistance, live Thursdays and Fridays from 6 to 7 p.m. Starting August 22nd, I'm going to be joined in studio with Dr. Fran Kaplan and Reggie Jackson, Executive Director of America's Black Holocaust Museum, to do 6 shows about race in America. On August 22nd and 23rd, we're going to talk about the history you never learned, facts about race in America. On August 29th and 30th, we're going to talk about why we think the way we do, unpacking implicit bias. Last, on September 5th and 6th, we're going to talk about why what we say and what we do matters. Getting woke, staying woke, and doing woke things. So white folks, you got questions you've never asked? Write them down, tune in, and call in, starting August 22nd through September 6th on Dawn of the Resistance on WRRD 1510 AM, always streaming live at newstalk1510am.com.
We the people, the hardworking 99% of men and women, only have a voice when we join together as one and amplify our message. Now is the time for all Wisconsinites to join We the People and raise our voices. Do you feel like you are wasting your money funding unaccountable consultants, unresponsive candidates, and their campaigns? Help us do something that really matters. Please join We the People. Give what you can so we can support progressive radio stations like this one, using the public airwaves to educate Wisconsin about what we the people want for our state and remind Wisconsin's politicians that they work for us. Your donations to We the People at p4ppc.org, a registered, compliant IRS 501c3, will always be tax deductible, will always remain anonymous, and We the People pledge to spend 100% of donations educating Wisconsin on the issues our donors want discussed, giving individuals a voice in the collective message of We the People. Please give today at p4ppc.org. That's p4ppc.org. We the people need you.
I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling devil's advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, streaming on YouTube and Facebook. That'll be up momentarily. We're on Twitter at Devil Radio. But this is radio the old-fashioned way. On the phones at 844-967-2789. Let's get to them. Dick from Madison, you're next. Thanks for calling today, Dick. What do you think, man?
Hey, Dick.
Well, I got a conspiracy theory.
Lay it on us, brother.
Ken Lay. He's with Ken Lay somewhere in an island. You know the guy from Enron.
Enron.
They never.
Yeah.
Yeah, they never found a body in that incident. But to Bill Barr getting to the bottom of this, there's the biggest joke of the whole weekend. He's going to get the FBI on this. Well, what's the problem there? Trump doesn't have any faith in the FBI whatsoever. So why would you have the FBI look into this? Just have your own attorney look into it. I mean, he's just a total sham. as an attorney
Yeah,
general.
it undermines
He is,
all
as you
credibility.
stated.
Dick, was it shocking at all to learn that Epstein apparently had committed suicide in prison? Did this breaking news
whatsoever.
even surprise you?
No, not at all. And, and Barr's been a crook for his entire – look, didn't he have something to do with Iran-Contra as well?
Oh, yes, he did.
Well, not so
Yeah.
much the event as the cover-up thereof.
He's kind of like the janitor for him, for the, Republican Party.
Little
And
extra
he is not
bleach
the
in the
Attorney
bucket
General.
these
He is
days.
Dick,
All
what's
he
your
is
take on the Trump retweeting this Terrence K. Williams, who his tweet said died of suicide at 24/7 suicide watch? Yeah, right. How does this happen? And then goes on to talk about Bill Clinton and Trump. The president himself retweets this. I'm not clear if he has a disclaimer that retweets are not endorsements either way. But I mean, for the president of the United States, whose
there's always
associate
culprits
friend,
besides him.
a person he has been videoed with partying, doing the white man biting the lip dance, Dick, has been found dead in his cell, and the president retweets something about the Clintons. What do you think about that, Dick?
Well, I think it's kind of mysterious, too, because just since all this broke a month or so ago, I haven't even had anything to do with him, and, I haven't seen him in years and all that stuff that he laid on us when he was first arrested. None of this passes the smell test whatsoever, not one bit of it. And none of it surprises me.
Unfortunately, Dick, you're right. It's not surprising, and in some ways, given the connections this man had to the people he was connected to, and given the circumstances and the thousands or 2,000 pages that came out the day before his apparent suicide, naming names. Come on, really? We don't protect that guy. I'm not buying it, Dick. I'm just saying. Seems fishy. Crudy, what do you think?
What good is witness relocation? Witness protection? If we can't keep him safe in the prisons, in solitary confinement because he had no cellmate, Dom, when we go to prison, I suspect they'll throw us in together. Sequential numbers.
We'll never go to prison. We got to do something
Charged,
wrong
never
first.
convicted.
That's right.
Well, I would certainly never off myself, but I can't speak to your longevity in the big house. Come back with us. More Devils, more beer calls. 844-967-2789.
Want to see the super sexiest political show on earth? Check out the Devil's Advocates on YouTube.
This is a conspiracy. That's what this is. One big damn conspiracy! And everyone's in on it!
Thank God, the police.
5 your local single-source IT solutions provider. Specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance, reminding you that when you adopt a shelter pet, you discover all the things that make them unique. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
The Forum, hosted by Sherwin Hughes.
You do a wonderful job. I hope you have a huge audience. I hope it's growing because you're quite an educator. Talk radio has to be people like yourself that really educate, that don't agitate. I just can't thank you enough. I love to listen to you. You develop a point, and then you just build off it and come to a beautiful conclusion. So keep it up.
The Forum from 9 a.m. to noon on WRRD 1510 a.m. Always streaming live on newstalk1510am.com.
You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
From the Capitol in Madison, this is Wiz Politics Midday.
Good afternoon. I'm Pat Pobletti, and our report for Monday, August 12th is brought to you by Spectrum. U.S. Senator Cory Booker told a crowd at a business incubator in Milwaukee's Sherman Park neighborhood that the way to beat President Trump is not by engaging in his tactics, but by inspiring people to get off the sideline and participate in democracy. But first, Senator Lena Taylor, a Dem from Milwaukee, hinted at a run for Milwaukee mayor in a weekend television interview. Said Taylor on Sunday on Upfront, produced in partnership with WisPolitics.com, "I've got on my Converse. Normally you wear tennis shoes when you're ready to run." Tom Barrett, Milwaukee's mayor since 2004, is up for re-election in 2020. He has not made a formal announcement about his plans, but published reports have said he's laying the groundwork for a re-election campaign. Additionally, Governor Tony Evers has dramatically cut the use of state planes compared to Scott Walker and instead is much more likely to use a car to get outside Madison, according to records obtained by WisPolitics.com. Still, Walker's plane use, which became an issue that dogged him in last year's election, also meant Wisconsin residents outside of Madison were more likely to see him in their communities. The WisPolitics check found Walker made more stops outside Madison during the first 3 months of 2017 than Evers did over his first 3 months in office. Records show that state planes traveled over 3,600 miles to ferry Evers and his aides around the state over his first 3 months in office, at a cost of over $28,000 to taxpayers. Altogether, he used state planes on 13 days during his first 3 months in office. Finally, Booker, a Dem presidential candidate, said the 2020 election is not a referendum on Trump. He said some believe that the way to beat Trump is fighting fire with fire. But he noted that as someone who ran a fire department as Newark, New Jersey mayor, quote, "I don't think that's a good strategy." He pointed to the civil rights movement and noted that those in the fight didn't win, quote, by bringing bigger dogs and fire hoses. Instead, he said, activists and artists inspired others to get off the sidelines and participate in democracy. Said Booker, quote, "I'm going to beat Donald Trump, but I'm going to beat him by inspiring, by engaging, by uplifting, by encouraging, by making sure we don't sit on the sidelines." For WisPolitics Midday, sponsored by Spectrum, I'm Pat Popoletti.
This has been WisPolitics Midday. For more state government and political news, visit WisPolitics.com.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
Come.
The Devil's Advocates. Never personal, only politics.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Back to work for me on a Monday, Dom. You know, I could have really used a few more days off.
Yeah. Who else would have died when you're not paying attention, Crudy?
Well, as long as it wasn't you, the show would have gone on. One would hope. Dominic, real quick, we'll get back to the phones momentarily. 844-967-2789. Of course, Bill Barr, the Attorney General lacking in credibility, said earlier today, the victims deserve justice and they will get it. He also slammed the handling of Epstein by the Manhattan Correctional Center after it was revealed a correctional officer had not checked on the pedophile for several hours before he hanged himself in his cell in the special housing unit. Barr, who said he was appalled and angry at the failure to adequately secure Epstein, added this sex trafficking case was very important to the Department of Justice and to me personally. Most importantly, this case was important to the victims who had the courage to come forward and deserve the opportunity to confront the accused in the courtroom. But here's the interesting part, Dom. This is a quote I had seen over the course of the weekend at the New York Post. I want to share it with the audience. A former close associate of the late mobster John Gotti Sr., Louis Kassman, said he heard that William Barr had paid a visit to the MCC around the time Epstein was first found with bruises on his neck. Now, this dropped over the weekend. I have not seen it independently verified, but they do offer a name making the accusation. Here is what Kassman allegedly said. When does that happen? The Attorney General never visits jail. Something's not right there. That's what I want to know. Did Barr meet with Epstein? You know, kind of like, who was it? Tom, the consigliere? went and met with Pentangeli at the federal prison and, just kind of talked about the Romans.
Don't worry about anything, Frankie 5
Yeah, what did they say about the Romans? They got that when they opened up their veins, right?
They went home and sat in the hot bath, opened up their veins, and bled to death.
Yeah. Or they hang themselves. Whatever. Don't worry about a thing. We got you covered.
844-967-2789. Devil's Advocates always got you covered. Hopefully in not order of appearance. I believe it's Nick from Humboldt. I'm very confused. Nick, you're up, sir. Welcome.
Hi there. Apparently my line's a little iffy, so, it was nice of him to secure it and see what we could do about it.
It's not you in this case. It's me, Nick, but please continue.
Is it really?
I'm just very confused on Monday.
Come on now. It is a Monday. My bank teller and I have already been through that. But anyway, couple things. So last I heard, Sunday, somebody was reporting on it, one of the major news networks. The coroner still could not say why he died. Okay? So all this stuff about, hanging himself,
I can tell you why he died, Nick. He knew too much.
We know why he died. He knew too much. That's absolutely correct, brother. That's absolutely correct, brother. So anyway, check this out. So Trump and Clinton, right? I mean, everybody, they're all immediately they got to go for the Clintons because that's just the way it is, because they've learned if they can get their propaganda out there before anybody else's, hence the Barr report on, nothing actually happened, that kind of garbage. Anyway, so Clinton had 4 trips documented anyway on the Lolita Express or whatever it was. It's actually called something else, but that's how that was the nickname, right?
Sure.
And 2 of them were to his to Africa for work with his with their their charitable organization, right?
The Clinton Foundation.
The Clinton Foundation, right, which of course is really seedy, except for all the information's online. You can look up every single month, every single year of what was spent and why and where it came from. But that's a different story for another time. And you know how many they got this information out of the discovery that came through the one time that this Epstein dude got nailed, and of course it got it got whitewashed and blah blah blah. And he ended up doing virtually nothing for what the crime he was should have been penalized for. But they had that little black book of his of like contacts, right? And in that little book there was 14 separate contacts for Trump. 14. Okay, so they were good buddies. Trump wanted to make sure he got a hold of him at any time he needed to, correct? And with Clinton, according to what I heard during this period of discovery, there was only one. So I'm thinking Clinton was, he was a friend. I mean, they were both very movers and shakers and on and all charismatic people. So anyway, and there was a bunch of others too. Think about it. Who's that idiot they're not idiot, excuse me, that's rude of me. Who's the guy that's from the kind of on the Republican side of the, oh God, I'm trying to think of his name. He's basically a lawyer. And
Dershowitz.
Written some books. Dershowitz.
Alan Dershowitz. Yes, sir.
Alan Dershowitz is even wrapped up in this, right? You see what I'm saying?
Well, he only had massages with his underwear on from older people, apparently. None of the young girls.
Everybody denies it. Thanks for the call, Nick.
And Dershowitz has subsequently published an op-ed saying, well, at 16, it's not really statutory rape, is it?
Is it? Wait, what?
Yeah, Epstein wrote an op-ed saying at 16, if you are capable of consenting in certain states, shouldn't there be some broader standard? At least that was my understanding of his logic. He wrote an op-ed coming out pro-statutory rape or, against the regulations by which some might hold a guy like him accountable for statutory rape. I'll Google it. Let's keep moving on.
Let's keep going. 844-967-2789. Is there a conspiracy? Is it corruption? Or is it just incompetence, and who should pay the price? because obviously it ain't going to be Epstein. Britt, also from Humboldt, you're next. Thanks for calling. What do you got for us?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good, man.
Wow. I don't really know what to say. It just feels like the plot is getting so thick. It's like stirring concrete now. I mean, it's creepy, honestly.
Well,
but
if the president can indulge conspiracy theories, can't we all?
Well, I mean, no, we can't. I'm outraged by it myself. I'm outraged. I mean, the Clintons, first of all, I mean, talk about flogging a dead horse. They've been talking about conspiracy theories and Vince Foster and all that shit since '94. And it's very...
Thank you for the call, Britt, 844-967-2789. Let's keep going on the phones. Ford from Milwaukee, you are next. Ford, what do you think?
Oh, I don't know what to think, guys. It's such a sad state of affairs. You know, it makes me think that, you know, justice isn't blind. Justice is dead. For his victims, though known and unknown, it is just such a sad state of affairs that they will never achieve their justice. And this clown, William Barr, I have absolutely zero faith in him, mainly because, one, his father, Donald Barr, was Epstein's mentor. So it's like, how can we trust this guy?
They all kind of seem to run around the same club, don't they, Ford? Like Mar-a-Lago.
We need to flip this system on its head. We really do, to see true, actual justice come through.
Well, but, I guess the good news for it is he's not going to do it again. But where do you come down, man? I mean, obviously, I look at this. I've said it. I'm going to keep on saying it unless someone could give me some other options. Corruption and conspiracy or incompetence. What do you think?
I think
I don't want to get too conspiratorial because, you know, I don't want to go down the Alex Jones route, but
no doubt
it is completely corrupt, and it's not this ridiculous Clinton conspiracy. I think, you know, it's money and power.
But did money and power specifically leave Epstein the means to end his life? You know, did he pay off a guard to, you know, leave him an extra couple of sheets? You know what I'm saying? There's so much we don't know, and I'm with you, man. I'm not conspiracy theorist guy. I don't think it's much of a conspiracy. There's already lots of conspiracy surrounding Epstein and who he was with and what they did and how they did it and how they tried to avoid it. And look at the charges and the prosecutor down in Miami and now, you know, Costa, the labor secretary. I mean, there's all sorts of conspiracy already around this man. So to think that perhaps he was somehow killed by those who had more to lose by his living, that's not out of the realm of possibility. Now, I'm not going to, you know, shoot out their tweets out there, the Clintons or Trump did it. I don't know who did it, but all I do know, Ford, is that if there was anyone who was going to kill himself or be killed, given the circumstances in this country and in the prison system, you got to think Epstein's in the top 10.
Man, this was the case of the century. They should have kept him in a padded room in a straitjacket. I mean, I know that's a little inhumane, but this is insane. This goes all the way to the top. I mean, this goes all the way to the top. Like, he was buddy-buddy with Donald Trump. I can't wrap my head around it. It's driving me nuts.
Well, Ford, it's an encouragement to live a long and healthy life because we won't know the truth for like 50 years.
Yeah. And, you know, my heart goes out to his victims. Yeah. And, you know, it's such a sad state of affairs. But anyways, hey, thanks for taking my call, guys. Keep doing what you're doing.
All right. Thank you, Ford. Appreciate it. 844-967-2789.
Real quick, I made an accusation, or at least said that Alan Dershowitz had written an op-ed, and let me clarify the point. The Boston Globe, my source. Alan Dershowitz defense op-ed suggests the age of consent for sex should be lowered. And just so we're clear, this published about 12 days ago. Alan Dershowitz, the outspoken, controversial Harvard Law School emeritus professor, is defending himself on Twitter after an op-ed resurfaced in which he suggested the age of consent for statutory rape cases should be lowered. Dershowitz made the suggestion in a 1997 op-ed in the Los Angeles Times, suggesting that 15 was a reasonable age of consent, no matter how old the other partner was. The op-ed drew attention after it was mentioned in a lengthy New Yorker story posted online Monday. Understanding this published on July 30th. Online Monday, they took a deep dive into Dershowitz's life and his connections, both personal and professional, to Jeffrey Epstein, a wealthy convicted sex offender who has been charged with sexually exploiting and abusing dozens of minor girls. On Monday afternoon, Richard Painter, a former White House ethics lawyer who's now a law professor at the University of Minnesota, wondered on Twitter in a series of tweets why Dershowitz had written the op-ed. In a third tweet, Painter cited a line in the op-ed, "Move over, puberty is arriving earlier, so therefore the age of consent should be lowered, ? Alan Dersh was off the deep end when he wrote this 20 years ago. Dershowitz replied to Painter that he stood by the argument in the op-ed piece. He said his argument was constitutional, not moral. He said that he had not suggested it was moral to have sex with a 16-year-old, but rather that the issue presents a constitutional conundrum worthy of discussion. Apparently Dershowitz all down for lowering the age of consent. One last, the New Yorker article, Alan Dershowitz, devil's advocate.
What?
Also included interviews with two women who have alleged that Epstein arranged for them to have sex with his friends, including Dershowitz, and it raised questions about travel record evidence he says proves his innocence, which the New Yorker staff writer Connie Bruck was able to examine for a few hours but not copy. Dershowitz has vehemently denied allegations and wrote a lengthy response to the New Yorker piece in advance, which was published on a conservative website, Newsmax.com. That's enough for now.
Dershowitz. He's also been a Trump defender, right?
Yes, on many topics.
And Acosta is the labor secretary, and he was in charge of the prosecution down in Florida the first time, right?
Virginia Guffrey, who says she had sex with Dershowitz at Epstein's behest, filed a defamation suit against Dershowitz in April, saying he has falsely accused her of lying. He's been challenging me for years. Come say it in public. Come say it in public. And I said, you know what? Challenge accepted. Guffrey told Bruck, I know he's going to put up a good fight, but at the end of it, I know we're going to win. We've got the truth on our side. Dershowitz told Bruck, I will proclaim my absolute innocence until the day I die. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. More of you on the phone. Pretty soon we got some fine guests dropping by, including Jim Santelle, a former U.S. attorney, and Jessie Opoien, a fine opinion editor at the Cap Times. More of you next, though. 844-967-2789.
After I shoot you, I stick myself in the arm with this knife. Then I place the knife in your dead hand. Self-defense. We don't do it much anymore, but back in the old days.
Those are fucking fighting words.
Thank God, the police.
Naomi Croth here. My family has owned and operated Bachman Construction since 1954. As an all-in-one design-build commercial contractor, Bachman Construction works with project owners from beginning to end of each project to unify responsibility and streamline communication. We provide more opportunities for owner participation and allow for better cost control in the design and construction of a project. For projects big and small, Bachman Construction is your design-build choice for collaborative construction services.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
Go back to where they came from, help those people, come back and show us how to do it. That was the full quote.
They didn't come from anywhere. They were here, dude. Are you employed, Chris?
I am.
Do you have an HR department?
Yes, I do. I'm a union machinist.
Oh, do you work with minorities?
I do.
If you walked up to one of your coworkers who was a minority, you told them to go back to where they came from, would HR have a conversation with you about that, do you think?
It depends on the person, really. I mean, some people are...
If somebody complained to HR about what you said, do you think they would have a conversation with you about that? Okay.
Absolutely.
But
Oh,
why?
absolutely.
Why would they pull you off of your job to discuss this with you, and what do you think their beef would be?
Because they're trying to protect the corporation from lawsuits.
Lawsuit for what?
Discrimination, racism.
So if your coworkers, if you say it to your coworker, it could be described as discrimination or racism. But when the president says it to the world, it's not racist?
No. Yikes.
The Devil's Advocates, the fix for political junkies everywhere.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. You can join us on the phones at 844-967-2789. Let's get to them. Annie from Watertown, you are up. Thanks for calling. Annie, what do you got for us?
Hey, Annie.
Oh, I was cleaning some dirty stuff from the refrigerator out, and you started reading Alan Dershowitz. I thought, how appropriate.
Right.
I mean, what has happened with that guy? I don't know.
He will deny till the day he dies, Annie. Guilty or not, he's denying. That's his defense, the denial defense. He strongly denies.
I'm so happy.
The wasn't me defense.
I'm so happy. It's like you're doing my bidding here. I was wondering about legal questions, and you've got Jim Santelle coming, and my question is, with Epstein out of the way, does that lessen the validity of all the tapes and whatever books and stuff he's got, because he's not there to say, yes, I wrote this?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if it may in some cases and it may not in others. I mean, obviously, if there's videos and emails and texts and things that are electronically tracked and recorded, perhaps those may be stronger in court. We'll ask Jim Santelle what he thinks. But the other side of it, of course, if you have diaries in long form, in his handwriting, perhaps it could be interpreted as being his and still hold as much sway as it probably
Annie,
should.
I would say in probability as the defendant, there was little or no chance Epstein was ever going on the stand. I mean, he is his own worst witness, I suspect. And other than sitting there and pleading the fifth over and over and over again, I suspect he would have never taken the stand. They would not have had the opportunity to quiz him on those fine details unless he turned state's witness, Annie. And the kind of time he's looking at, I'm not sure what he could have done. You know, these co-conspirators, you're going to hear about this Maxwell woman and a few other women that were, necessary parts of his engagement in sexual trafficking. But they were doing so at his bequest. It's like the fact that Michael Cohen in prison and Donald Trump, the one that directed him to lie to Congress and pay off the porn stars, well, he's still sitting out of jail. Trump can't roll up on Michael Cohen at this point. Epstein wasn't going to be able to roll up on his co-conspirators. And the co-conspirators, well, I think they're going to face some new scrutiny. I bet you'll see some charges filed against Maxwell and a few other unfamiliar names because they're not famous, but they'll become infamous through their association with Epstein.
I think they'd be checking under their car before they started.
Annie, what do you think in this Epstein suicide case? Incompetence or conspiracy?
Oh, I don't know about a conspiracy. I just say he didn't kill himself on his own. I mean, no, I really think, it's very good for a lot of people that he's out of the way.
I'm going to put you down for conspiracy, Annie. Thank you for the call. 844-967-2789. If he didn't do it on his own, doesn't that make it a conspiracy? Steve from Milwaukee, welcome to the Devil's Advocate. Steve, what do you think?
Hey, Steve.
Yeah, so as far as, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, this is the first suicide at that location in 26 years. And based on also what we know is he tried to kill himself last week. So we also know that there's no CCTV footage from the night before his cell. All these things, the whole, if there's too many coincidences, is probably not a coincidence. I guess my whole point with the whole thing is on the social media, I see all these Clinton jokes, right? Clinton. And my big question is, first of all, I guess they say that the Clintons are totally inept, but yet they can still run this vast criminal conspiracy and pull off all this stuff. But they also can't do anything that's good, right? If they really want to. And the other point that I have is, I think it's like crazy to me that they can say, all right, Clinton is probably implicated on these charges. I am a liberal. I accept that. Clinton is likely implicated on these charges with Epstein based on the evidence. And he was president 20 years ago. So he's likely, in these memes and this conspiracy from the right, he's likely somebody we should look at. But the president, who's also implicated, who also we have these connections, these videos, these pictures, these court documents, these accusations, who's actually currently at the head of the Justice Department, the head of the executive, where Epstein was kept in a federal prison within Manhattan, very close to Trump's home and where he grew up and where he knows people and has connections. Well, we couldn't possibly imagine that Trump did it. And it's crazy to me that we're at the point as a society where we can't just get together and say, hey, based on what we know, these guys may have both been pedophiles. Let's get to the bottom of this. That we're actually turning this into a political thing and saying, well, it's the Clintons definitely, but let's forget about the guy in charge of the current Justice Department in the federal branch. The political thing.
That is the political situation in which we find ourselves, Steve. Thank you so much for the call. And it is certainly unfortunate. I'm with you. I don't give a damn if it's Clinton or Trump or whoever. I mean, if they were dialed in, if they were taking the Lolita trips, if they were involved with this guy, I mean, everybody who's ever touched this man in any way, shape, or form should and must be scrutinized. And every person that went in and out of that jail in the last week should and must be scrutinized. Heads should roll for this. And I'm sorry, I don't believe that Barr is the one to get to the bottom of it.
Now, I tried to find some supporting article for Steve, and I do see that jail suicides are down significantly over 20 years, down by about 2/3. But I do not see a specific source that said Epstein was the first MCC suicide in, let's call it 25 years. I forget precisely what he said. In fact, I find different articles, including at The Atlantic, concluding that Jeffrey Epstein's death reflects a suicide problem that still exists in prisons and jails around the nation. Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates. Come back with us. We got a fine guest, James Santelle, former U.S. attorney. We'll ask him about it. And Jessie Opoien. Jessie, first time in the new studio, the Broadcast Bunker 2.0. She's going to drop by in the 4 o'clock hour as well. We're going to turn to the Democratic race. It's been a while. Haven't been paying close attention. I bet you Bernie's winning. We'll ask her when we come back. More Devil's Advocates. James Santelle is next.
If politics is boring, you're doing it wrong. Check out more at domandcroot.com.
I want to see this dead grandmother firsthand. Roll her old bones on over here and
You're
I'll...
gonna be dead.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
Our friends over at Madison Liquidators are expanding into a bigger, nicer space just off Pleasant View Road in Middleton to better serve their clients and better display their extensive collection of new and nicer used office furniture. Start online at madisonliquidators.com for their complete collection, or go see Kelly to help make your own office plan. madisonliquidators.com. Tell them you heard them on Talk 92.7 FM.
You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
We'll sue. We'll sue too. I'm Christopher Cruz. Immigrant rights groups say they'll sue to try to block a rule announced today that could deny green cards to immigrants if they use food stamps or Medicaid. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Acting Director Ken Cuccinelli unveiled the rule at the White House earlier today.
Well, we certainly expect people of any income to be able to stand on their own 2 feet. And so if people are not able to be self-sufficient, then this negative factor is going to bear very heavily against them.
The Association of American Medical Colleges says the rule could discourage non-citizen immigrants from getting the medical care they need. The Attorneys General of California and Massachusetts said today they'll go to court to try to block another rule announced today by the Trump administration. It would change how the Endangered Species Act is enforced. Critics say the changes will result in more creatures going extinct. Investigators say there's no indication that a man who bought and stored body armor for Connor Betts, the man who shot and killed 9 people in Dayton, Ohio earlier this month, knew that Betts was planning a mass shooting. But today, Ethan Colley was charged with lying on federal firearms forms, among other things. U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Ohio, Ben Glassman.
Colley indicated that he purchased these items for Betts and stored them at Colley's residence in order to assist Betts in hiding the items from Betts' parents.
The South and the Midwest are sweltering in dangerously hot weather. Heat advisories have been posted from Texas, Louisiana, and Florida in the South to Missouri and Illinois in the Midwest. The 3 major stock indices spent all day in negative territory, says correspondent Steve Kastenbaum.
Investors sold off stocks primarily because they were watching the rate of return on 10-year Treasury bonds falling to 1.64% during the day. It's just barely above the rate of return on 2-year Treasury bonds. When 10-year bonds pay off less than 2-year bonds, in the past, that has preceded a recession. Folks on Wall Street are also concerned about the ongoing and intensifying protests in Hong Kong.
It is a Hi, I'm Anton Capella. As Chief Technology Officer at Five Nines, it's my job to make sure your network is up 99.999% of the time. Technology is constantly evolving, and keeping your business up to date in an ever-changing environment can be a hassle. At Five Nines, we're here to help. Five Nines is more than just our name. It's the level of service you can expect. Better IT gives your business a competitive advantage. Learn how Five Nines can help at fivenines.com. That's the number 5, NINES.com.
Eric Holder, he's the former U.S. Attorney General and current chair of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee.
The notion that Scott Walker is saying that we are doing something to push partisan gerrymandering, that is the pot calling the kettle total black. I mean, that's absurd. He is one of the architects of among the most gerrymandered states in the union. All we're pushing for is a fair process come 2021.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
In an effort to reduce the cost of gun violence on the public, one mayor in California is proposing a first-of-its-kind ordinance that would shift the cost to gun owners.
San Jose Mayor Sam Liccardo wants all gun owners in his city to carry liability insurance for their weapons, and those who can't afford it can pay a fee to compensate taxpayers for the public cost of gun violence. Liccardo says mayors don't have the luxury of just offering thoughts and prayers. They have to solve problems. He says while the ordinance is not a complete solution, at least it's something aimed at reducing the harms of gun violence without having to wait for Congress to act. Along with the insurance or fee, he proposes a city tax on guns and ammunition to fund gun safety classes, gun violence prevention programs, and additional assistance to victims of gun violence. I'm Jim Roop.
Netflix said today the 3rd season of its hit series The Crown will begin November 17th. Academy Award-winning Olivia Colman is taking over the role of Queen Elizabeth II from Claire Foy, who played Her Majesty in the first 2 seasons. I'm Christopher Cruz.
We have Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt US Kids, and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates. They refuse to do math on the radio.
Dr. Michael Hicks, professor of economics, director of the Center for Business and Economic Research at Ball State University. This is troubling math all the way around. According to your mathematics, Michael, when do you think the great state of Wisconsin will get paid back on its investment?
Right. I mean, the answer is the answer is never.
For WRRD and WTTN, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. Presidential candidate Cory Booker was in Milwaukee yesterday. The U.S. Senator from New Jersey made a campaign stop at Sherman Phoenix in the Sherman Park neighborhood, where a couple hundred people showed up to hear him speak. Booker said the way to beat Donald Trump is to not make the campaign about him, but make it about the issues that voters care about, such as climate change, education, health care, and prescription drug prices. Booker pledged to fight the National Rifle Association and said the fight for gun control is about freedom, freedom from fear, and freedom from violence. Forecast for Milwaukee and Madison. Tonight, rain likely, lows in the mid-60s. Tomorrow, partly sunny with highs around 78 in Milwaukee, 73 in Madison. You're listening to WRRD and WTTN.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, we welcome back a fine guest, our friend, former U.S. Attorney James Santelle. He is live in the Brady Street studios. Welcome back, Jim.
Dom, Mike, nice to be with you once again on a Monday.
Sir. Always appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Hey, real quick, Jim, I wanted to make a point. A caller just made a point, and I wasn't able to verify it rapidly, but I have over the subsequent commercial break. Epstein, the very first suicide at that federal facility in 21 years, Jim. Yeah. Apparently a rarity, only 3 suicide attempts in 40 years at that facility. And as Dom has pointed out earlier in this show, you know, it seems like this guy would draw a little extra scrutiny in that he had already apparently, allegedly tried to commit suicide once. And obviously it was a very high profile. Jim, how can this guy kill himself? How is that feasible?
You know, I have not recently taken to quoting my Attorney General on a regular basis, but when Attorney General Barr says, I'm livid, I'm angry, I'm appalled, that probably understates it by about 25, 30, 40% or so in terms of how we should respond to this. I don't recall.
But do you believe him, Jim? I mean, right. He's got a credibility issue at this late hour.
I think he does, and I am, again, hoping that when it comes to addressing this problem at this facility in New York City, they're serious about it. He has plainly told the FBI and the Office of the Inspector General, we can talk about those 2 parallel investigations, to pursue this. And I think he's serious about that. But it's a huge problem. And Americans, once again, should be concerned about the fact that regardless of who you are, if you are in federal prison, this should not happen. And again, to your point, Mike, this is a fellow who, as late as a few weeks ago, plainly, I think we all interpret it this way, when the scratches and the other things are on his neck, we understood that he would probably already made an attempt to kill himself in prison. Under those circumstances, the protocols should have more than kicked in here. And the fact that he kills himself early Saturday morning, I think, is appalling and more than that.
If he were in the last case, sorry, Kurt, when he had the marks and abrasions on his neck from a week or 2 ago, if that were to be caused by a cellmate or another prisoner, would that have been released publicly?
Well, again, it may still be out there. It certainly is the kind of thing that through a Freedom of Information Act, other things, the Bureau of Prisons can and should respond to it. My guess is that now that all this focus is on his suicide, that at some point we are going to be looking back at exactly what that was. And with respect to what's going on right now, I mean, we obviously hear that there is the autopsy that has been completed, no results released yet to this point, but we want to look at all those kinds of things. You want to go back and look not only at the abrasions and the cuts on his neck, you want to do things, and again, I'm just speculating here. I'm not saying that there is out there. You want to look at his entire body to see if there's anything else going on here. Things under his nails, scratches on his arms, on his back, on his face, anything that would suggest something untoward, something out of the usual happening there. And you want to pursue that. You want to talk with the Bureau of Prisons staff there about what happened. You want to track that down and try to figure out exactly what the history on this was and is.
Jim, don't want to seem conspiratorial. My understanding is there was no cellmate, although that would be typical, especially for someone that was perhaps under suicide watch. They actually have trained inmates that sometimes will ride, basically suicide duty with a potential someone that is susceptible to committing suicide. Above and beyond that, Jim, no video. How can there be no video of the occurrence? Isn't that a fairly mandatory thing in federal prisons at this point? Wouldn't they have observation on every part of that prison?
And we hope that somehow in some of these videos out there we can capture some of this. It's early on in the investigation by both the Inspector General and also by the FBI. You'd like to think that eventually we'll be able to capture some of those images. But again, your sense of outrage, Mike, I think is well placed. All these things that did not happen. There may have been some specific reasons for not having with a cellmate right now. We don't know that. Obviously, he was charged with some horrific violations of sex trafficking laws and other things. That can also be a problem. But as you indicated, that would have been one effort to try to address this problem. Having him under a 30-minute surveillance, looking at him constantly and ensuring that, after this very recent attempted suicide, apparently, you're going after that and trying to figure out what happened there. All those kinds of things should have been done. I will say that the Bureau of Prisons does have protocols on all these things, and that's what's going to be the interesting thing going ahead here, which is what protocols were followed, which ones were not. And my guess is there are an awful lot of people right now inside the Bureau of Prisons, inside the Department of Justice generally, who are very nervous about this situation. This is outrageous.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. We got a fine guest. He is Jim Santelle, live in the Brady Street studios. Former U.S. Attorney Jim, appreciate you coming around, especially on a day like today. So let's set aside the conspiracy theories. Let's assume it isn't an agent of the Clintons or an agent of Donald Trump or perhaps even the Russians. Let's assume it's not a murderous circumstance. What's the likelihood? I think Dom asked the questions. Is it incompetence or corruption? What's the likelihood that this man paid off a guard or somehow paid off the process to allow himself adequate time to kill himself?
All those things are certainly possibilities that would be on the list of any good investigator to determine whether or not that was the case. You want to talk to everybody who had contact with him since the time he was at the MCC in New York. People who booked him initially, the intake folks, cellmates in the past, the people who responded to that prior suicide attempt. You want to be exhaustive. Everybody who came to his attention on the food line, out in any sort of recreational area, you want to talk to everybody to figure out what the connections may have been. And recall again that what's happening here is that there is the criminal investigation by the FBI to determine whether or not there was any crime committed here. Again, my own sense is probably not a crime in the traditional sense, although, and again, we don't charge this a whole lot, there's a sense of criminal negligence, typically in the environmental area, some kinds of food things, those kinds of areas. If your activity, if your inactivity, if your inattention, if your negligence is so profound that it causes this kind of event, and it's reasonably foreseeable that it may happen, that's a possible pursuit of a line of questioning and a line of pursuit down the road here. The other piece of it is with the Office of the Inspector General, again, going back to your question, asking everybody who had any contact with him. You want to look at all the records. You want to figure out what happened in those hours right before, again, early Saturday morning, Friday night, who he was talking to, who he has visitors from. You want to turn over every single stone before you make any final determinations here. And again, my sense is that not only is this outrageous and problematic in the sense that this defendant has now taken his own life, but there are an awful lot of people out there who plainly know something about the circumstances here. They need to be interviewed. They need to be talked to. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if the Inspector General in the end comes forth and says there are huge violations of the regular protocols here. The following 5 things should have happened, for example. And as a result of that, we have to wait and see. But again, I always say that, criminal prosecution, this is human tragedy, right? It's human tragedy from start to finish. This particular case now has it all from every single perspective. Obviously, the top of the list are his victims, described in the indictment. Those folks who may have some civil remedies now, maybe still will go after some co-conspirators here. We can chat about that in terms of evidentiary bases for doing those prosecutions. But you've got the victims, you've got other people who are involved in this. You plainly have the public in general that wants to know what happened here. That's a constituency. Again, all this human tragedy, and of course the fact that he himself is dead robs the victims of their opportunity to confront him and to present their case in a court of law.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. That is James Santelle. He's a former U.S. attorney, friend of the show. James, I want to get to some of the other high-profile folks that have been killed in prison briefly, if I may. Whitey Bulger, right?
Right.
Very violent lifestyle. Old man ended up beaten by the time he was finally caught and incarcerated. Shortly after he arrived, he was killed. Jeffrey Dahmer, famously, also murdered in prison, and now we have this apparent suicide of Epstein. Now, all high-profile cases, but the other ones were after the actual case went to trial, right? He was. Is there any difference? Is there different protocols involved with holding someone pre-trial versus post-trial?
There shouldn't be. The reality is that we should try to keep everybody safe and secure, regardless of what their status is. They're entitled to the same kind of security in federal systems and state systems that they would be entitled to, even if they were convicted. That series of events that you described, Dom, is also troubling. Whitey Bulger, 89 years old, I believe he was wheelchair-bound, beaten within hours of his arriving at Hazleton, and probably that was what we call euphemistically a hit on him. But again, after conviction, again, a tragedy in every single way.
Now, Whitey got away in the first place because he was working with an FBI agent.
Correct.
Right? So, and presumably, if there was any nefarious conspiracy going on here, it could have been as simple as Epstein guaranteeing something to a guard who, again, left a sheet, left a rope, left a string, a wire, who knows what the case may be. But in these kinds of cases, Jim, how often is it the law enforcement, be it the FBI agent in Bulger's, Whitey's case, or just prison officials who are involved in these kinds of things? Do we have any reference we can look back on for cases like these?
The reality is, again, as we talked just a few moments or so ago, that there is responsibility inside the jailers, right? Among the group of people who are responsible for keeping you safe and secure. If you're released on bond, and again, we've had defendants who we've indicted here in eastern Wisconsin, around the country, who are not in custody, and they have committed suicide. Again, a tragedy in every aspect of the process here. But when you are in federal custody, when you're in state custody, you have an expectation. The entire justice system has an expectation that you'll be kept safe and secure. I am hopeful. I believe that this investigation will in fact identify all those people. And in the end, if there is something that is either negligent, criminally negligent, or simply a wild violation of protocols, that will come out and that will be a part of our history in this case and perhaps others as well.
Well, I'm not holding my breath for Barr to get to the bottom of it. As we go to break here, Jim Santelle, former U.S. attorney. A caller asked, I thought it was a good question. Now the fact that Epstein is apparently moved along, he's no longer with us in this world. We still have perhaps videos and information left over, including apparently some diaries. Does any of the evidence that still exists, especially the diaries, take on any less weight now that the man who may have written them is no longer with us?
It plainly can't be used in prosecution of him. We know that. Obviously, there's no defendant here anymore to prosecute. But we've always understood, even from the indictment, there are these hints about this. There are potential co-conspirators out there, and they likewise should be looking behind themselves and wondering wondering if they're next. The interesting thing about the suicide of Jeff Epstein is that while he would have standing to move to suppress some of the things that were seized during the course of the investigation of him, the others presumably would not. And while their defense attorneys will certainly, as they should, file motions and pursue all the remedies that are available to them, the reality is that those kinds of things, the diaries, there are all sorts of evidentiary considerations when it comes to things written by people who are no longer with us, who have died. All those kinds of things become very, very relevant.
Folks, James Santelle, he'll be back. You come back with us. We'll go to break. We'll be right back. More Devil's Advocates, more explanation of the Epstein suicide on the other side.
This is a conspiracy. That's
just
what this
remember,
is.
what you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening.
Danny, this isn't Russia. Is this Russia? This isn't Russia, is it? I don't think so.
Hi, I'm Kelly, and my family owns Madison Liquidators, a company with sustainability as our business model. We are excited to announce that we are moving into a bigger, nicer location, allowing us to serve you better with expanded inventories of both new and used office furniture. Right now, we will give you a great deal because we would much rather move any of our current inventory into your office than our new space. Check out our complete inventory online at madisonliquidators.com or come make a deal off Pleasant View Road in Middleton before moving day.
I don't see the support. I don't support it.
Wisconsin Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald doesn't see the support for legalized medicinal marijuana, even though the 2018 midterm referendum in 11 counties and the city of Waukesha passed by over 79%. Call Scott Fitzgerald at 608-266-5660. Tell him you support legalized medicinal marijuana.
No, I don't see it.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org, p4ppc.org.
My congressman, our good friend Mark Opoien. If Donald Trump's under attack, Mark, are you worried about his inspired followers rising up and voting him to re-election?
I am trying to approach this with blinders on when it comes to the political side of it. If he has violated the Constitution, it is our obligation to do an impeachment. And I think from what I've read, I feel that. I think when we get some witnesses in, we'll really have full clarity on that. But if it was just political reasons, some people say, well, then you're going to get, Mike Pence, is that good? And you can second guess every decision we ever make in politics if it's just about politics. In this case, I think that you rise to the Constitution. And if he has violated the Constitution, which I believe he has, there's obstruction on multiple counts, then we have no choice but to do our constitutional job and go after that.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates interviews at domandcroot.com. Click on the podcast tab and select interviews. That's domandcroot.com.
The Devil's Advocates, because it's always 420 somewhere.
And we are back from the 420 break. Thank you so much for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, streaming on YouTube and Facebook, on Twitter, Devil Radio, and the phone lines are 844-967-2789.
Don, we got a fine guest in the Brady Street studios. He's our friend, James Santelle, former U.S. attorney. Jim, got to ask you, my understanding is there are specific legal defenses that Epstein, the living Epstein, would have been entitled to that do not survive his death. Can you explain that concept a little bit? Because we may see at least some of this evidence end up in future litigation.
Absolutely. And right before the break, we talked a little bit about this, and let's go into that a little bit more detail because I do think it's significant. The notion that because Jeff Epstein is no longer here, that all the evidence dies with him is simply not the case. There is this concept called standing, which is, are you the right plaintiff? You're the right person to petition, if you will, for redress of your grievances. Jeffrey Epstein, when it came to things, his diaries, for example, things seized in searches of his house and his places of business, he would have standing to contest those things. You don't necessarily have a Fourth Amendment right to privacy for someone else's office or someone else's residence. And so these other people with whom he may have had some other conspiratorial relationship and putting all this sex trafficking together, those folks may not have the compelling argument to make. As I said before the break, will their defense attorneys still raise those motions? Sure they will. That's good defense, and that's what they've got to do. But again, there are many ways in which the fact that Jeff Epstein's death has happened does not not mean at all that the evidence goes away. The other thing we should plainly talk about is not only the criminal prosecutions coming out here, but also the victims, the survivors, not only in terms of the Victim Witness Protection Act and other things like that, but they may have, and will have, we've already seen it, some civil remedies here too. We saw this perhaps most notoriously in the O.J. Simpson case. We had an acquittal there, obviously not a suicide of the principal defendant, but civilly going after the principal culprit there and getting huge judgments. And again, in this particular case, we know that Jeff Epstein did not have family, I do not believe, but he does have an awful lot of assets out there. And again, I'm not suggesting for one moment that money makes everybody whole, that all these victims who are truly, truly on the receiving end of his horrific behavior could be made whole by getting money. On the other hand, that's probably the one thing that we might be able to do in the process, which is civil litigation and maybe even some other matters inside future criminal cases.
Now, Jim, he was not able to perpetrate this sex trafficking without some accomplices. And I've seen, at least in reports, and these names unfamiliar to me, Maxwell, apparently the most famous. But let's assume there are some guilty accomplices out there in the world. Could the actual other perpetrators of the crime, be it famous names like Prince Andrew that we've seen in the court filings, etc., what pressure could be exerted on those co-conspirators, and what would their possible pleadings look like, Jim, to try and avoid jail for a long period of time themselves?
Sure. Again, we should chat about this because, again, those people who are out there who are co-conspirators, if I were among that group today, I'd be very, very nervous. Not only because, obviously, again, the human tragedy of all of this, not just Epstein's death, but the way that this has played out means it's unlikely that the prosecutors, investigators are simply going to walk away from this. And now that Jeff Epstein is no longer going to be a defendant, now you turn to those other people and say, okay, who did you work with? You follow the money, as we often say. You figure out who it is that benefited from this, who set up the arrangements described in great detail in this indictment, who made those calls, got the young minor girls, got the young adult women, who did all of those things. Those people plainly should be in the focus. I'm sure they are, of both federal and state prosecutors. Beyond that, if I were to think about what other possibilities that are out there, not only the civil litigation, but also just general claims, again, inside requests for restitution. And I think that's plainly a strong likelihood as well.
Jim, I've seen lots of speculation. I've seen speculation that Epstein's other, perhaps, vocation was blackmail, and that if he had rich and powerful men primarily that were his associates that came to, let's call it Lolita Island, and maybe had untoward sex or whatever with minor girls, they committed a crime of their own. Is that a crime that potentially will be prosecuted after the fact, whether it's the initial crime of sex with a minor woman or the blackmail against the estate of Epstein, theoretically?
The blackmail is certainly a possibility. And here's the other one that comes to mind, not only as we talk about this today, but even as this plays out. Anybody who's involved in human trafficking investigations and prosecutions always says this. Yes, we can identify the Jeff Epsteins out there, the people who are at the core of these processes to get girls, principally girls, not always exclusively, but principally girls to men. What about prosecuting the men? What about those people? Because they are just as involved. They're the market, if you will, right? They're the market out there. Those are the people who support this, who pay money. And to your present question, the previous question also, you approach, whether it's a Prince Andrew or other people, and you say, listen, we would like to interview you. We'd like to talk to you in the grand jury. And those people plainly have some information about not only financial pieces, but also options for other prosecutions down the road.
Jim, if you've got a few more minutes, we'd ask you kindly to stick around. We are the Devil's Advocates. More James Santelle on the other side. Come right back.
Absolutely.
Want to be more presidential? Tweet the Devil's Advocates at Devil Radio. Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
Go back to where they came from, help those people come back and show us how to do it. That was the full quote.
They didn't come from anywhere. They were here, dude. Are you employed, Chris?
I am.
Do you have an HR department?
Yes, I do. I'm a union machinist.
Oh, do you work with minorities?
I do.
If you walked up to one of your coworkers who was a minority, you told them to go back to where they came from, would HR have a conversation with you about that, do you think?
It depends on the person, really. I mean, some people are...
If somebody complained to HR about what you said, do you think they would have a conversation with you about that?
Absolutely.
Okay. But why? Why would they pull you off of your job to discuss this with you, and what do you think their beef would be?
Because they're trying to protect the corporation from lawsuits.
Lawsuit for what?
Discrimination, racism.
So if your coworkers, if you say it to your coworker, it could be described as discrimination or racism. But when the president says it to the world, it's not racist?
No. Yikes.
You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
Hey guys, this is Maggie Dawn, host of Dawn of the Resistance, live Thursdays and Fridays from 6 to 7 p.m. Starting August 22nd, I'm going to be joined in studio with Dr. Fran Kaplan and Reggie Jackson, Executive Director of America's Black Holocaust Museum, to do 6 shows about race in America. On August 22nd and 23rd, we're going to talk about the history you never learned, facts about race in America. On August 29th and 30th, we're going to talk about why we think the way we do, unpacking implicit bias. Last, on September 5th and 6th, we're going to talk about why what we say and what we do matters. Getting woke, staying woke, and doing woke things. So white folks, you got questions you've never asked? Write them down, tune in, and call in starting August 22nd through September 6th on Dawn of the Resistance on WRRD 1510 AM, always streaming live at newstalk1510am.com.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern.
For WRRD and WTTN, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. School starts today for some Milwaukee Public School students. This is the third year of the district's early start calendar. 43 of MPC's 160 schools, including all of the high schools, will be back in session today. The rest of the students go back on September 3rd, the day after Labor Day. And more e-scooters are coming to Milwaukee. The city is expected to approve 2 more companies today to add fleets of the dockless scooters. Bird and Spin are the companies that will join the Lime scooters that are already on the streets. Each company is capped at 350 scooters for a total of 1,050. The scooters are part of a pilot program that runs through the end of this year. You're listening to WRRD and WTTN.
Bring it? Oh, it's already been brought in. Dom and Krutz are the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Crazy Train seems very appropriate. We've got James Santelle, and he's not the correlation. He is a former U.S. attorney, a friend of ours. We've got Jessie Opoien, the fine opinion editor at the Cap Times. She'll be along a little later in the hour. But, Jim, I got to ask you about the off-the-rails conspiracy theory that Donald Trump was tweeting out over the course of the weekend. That's a good thing, right, Jim?
That's a very, very bad thing, I will tell you. A very bad thing. Again, it goes back to our public statements by the chief executive, and that doesn't help anybody. And again, we all know that. I'm not saying anything that's new or original here. His continued involvement in these things, this is now a criminal matter. It was before, and it still is. The Inspector General is now looking at this. To the extent that our president is once again offering America thoughts on what really happened here, he doesn't know. None of us knows. Nobody knows, including the Inspector General himself, including the FBI director himself. Nobody knows. That is not helpful. And like so many other things the president does when it comes to interfering in the normal processes of the investigative and prosecutorial system, this is the latest. We saw this inside the Mueller report, right? We've got these 8, 9, 10 instances of obstruction of justice, some of them premised upon things he said in tweets about not cooperating with the investigation, about encouraging people not to assist, and commending those people who do not. It's just the latest, and it's very disappointing that our president continues to do this. I'm also looking forward to our Attorney General being more clear on that, too. That doesn't help anybody's investigation, including those being supervised by the Attorney General of the United States of America.
Now, Jim, my understanding is it's the 2-year anniversary of the death of activist Heather Heyer in Charlottesville, Virginia. And, of course, Epstein committed suicide probably over the course of the weekend. And Trump not only tweeted out some anti-Clinton conspiracy theory, but also rolled out some anti-endangered species stuff today and more anti-immigrant stuff. And all of it, Jim, seemed designed specifically to cause outrage, to inspire some turning of the page, Jim. What exactly do you think he's turning the page from? Is it Epstein? Is it Charlottesville? What's he turning the page from now?
And, to some extent, that presumes that there is a method to this madness, right? that there is a purposeful intention when you get up this morning and strategically you want to do this or that. I'm not certain that's the case. I see so much random commentary. I think it's just a scattershot approach. I know there are other people who disagree with me that think there is a very strategic thing that's going on here. My own sense is that it is what you do in the moment. You respond to a news item, whether it's on the talk shows, whether it's on cable news, something you see in the newspaper, and you simply get on your Twitter system and you tweet away. It's so inappropriate. It's so inappropriate for our president to be doing that. Putting aside just the legal process here, it is intended to confuse and to distort what's going on. I also think that it supports those people out there and they're out there, right? That we found out in the recent 50th anniversary of the moon landing, the number of people in America who still don't believe we landed on the moon, that sort of thing. These conspiracy theories don't help. It is truly craziness. And again, I don't know the president has tweeted about the moon landing, but all these conspiracies out there and encouraging them, Pizzagate, all those kinds of things are very, very counterproductive to our general way of living, and certainly, once again, to investigations and prosecutions that he should be ultimately caring about an awful lot.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
You think he would, Jim Santelle, former U.S. attorney, joining me in studio here on Brady Street. You think he would. There's video of him with Epstein, dancing and goofing around and looking at the ladies dancing, having a good time. He hung out with them. They had a falling out a while back, but, no empathy for this man whatsoever. I guess how could we possibly be surprised when we see the picture of him after the mass shooting holding, the baby survived after the baby's
now
parents
orphaned,
were killed,
right,
orphaned, and he's sitting there thumbs up, grinning ear to ear. The man has no empathy. It's always about him, and now he's taking the political opportunity to, engage in the conspiracy theories by spinning it over to say something about Clinton. But I do have to say this. Given the fact that Barr is the Attorney General and Trump's administration, I have very little faith. I just got to be honest. What about congressional investigations into this? Are you convinced that the FBI and/or the Office of Inspector General is going to have the temerity to fulfill this thing and follow it through to the end? Or do you think maybe we should get the congressional committees involved?
You know, I think you pull at all the stops on something like this. And certainly the first stop is the Department of Justice. I still believe there are an awful lot of wonderful civil servants out there who do their jobs inside the FBI, inside the U.S. Attorney's offices, inside Main Justice in Washington, D.C. Those people are going to do this right, and they're going to follow up on this to the nth degree and follow it to the end. So I have great confidence in that process. Should the United States Congress, the House of Representatives, United States Senate, if they have some concerns about this as well, especially when it comes to the legitimacy of any investigation, if they feel that somehow it is being stymied or not going ahead, do they have oversight capacity with respect to the executive branch? You bet they do. And while it probably shouldn't be begun right now when these other processes are going ahead, should the Congress that funds the Bureau of Prisons, that funds the Department of Justice, should they be looking at how we're spending our money? You know, one of the things that came out of this recent reporting about the Epstein suicide is this not so subtle suggestion that, well, we know the Bureau of Prisons understaffed. There are apparently 5,000 positions that have not been filled. There are issues about money. Well, that's a matter for congressional oversight. And whether it's about Jeff Epstein in particular, about the problem generally. We talked about situations beyond just Jeff Epstein. That is the kind of thing that Congress should take a look at. They're the budgeting people in this country, and to the extent we want to stop this from happening in the future, that's where that piece can start tomorrow. That budgeting piece can start tomorrow if they want to take a look at this.
Jim, it's being reported at this hour that the Federal Bureau of Investigation agents have raided the private island, Epstein's private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. This is obviously a couple days post-death. And my understanding is from the reporting I'm reading here, they even were diving off the coast looking for things underwater. Jim, we understand there have been prior executed search warrants. Why wouldn't they have gone to the scene of the alleged crime prior? Why would they have not gathered evidence prior at this island?
We don't know for sure. I hope, once again, that there's a strategy to this. You normally sit down with investigators and say, how are we going to go about doing this? How are we going to pursue this? We already have an indictment, we know, of against Jeff Epstein, and we'd like to think that a lot of the evidence has been gathered. So we don't know exactly the reason for the return to the island, doing all these kinds of things. Plainly now a heightened focus, now that he is no longer a defendant in this case. Future defendants could be co-conspirators, and also relevant, frankly, even to the circumstances of his death. You never know if there's something in that body of evidence you find, even on the island, in his apartments, other places.
Were there people, do you think there were feds watching that island, that once he was killed, let's say whatever the case, Jeffrey Epstein is dead, if there was any powerful people who had any tapes or anything like that might be on that island, that perhaps they went there and started rummaging through? I mean, is it standard protocol, to your experience, that when you have something like Epstein in custody, that perhaps there's places where the other evidence would be watched at a minimum?
Absolutely. Again, you want to be very, very thoughtful and very, very aggressive about this, right? This is, just look at the indictment itself. It's a broad-ranging conspiracy. Obviously, Epstein is the core of this, but he's got lots of people involved. You don't want to be on the receiving end down the road of whether it's public media attention or even be embarrassed in court by saying, gee, you didn't do these kinds of things. You didn't get the telephone toll records. You didn't search these places where there could be more evidence. For all of those reasons, you want to do it thoughtfully and aggressively. I like to think, once again, there's a plan to all this. It should be pursued and should be gotten.
My last question, Jim, and I'll pass over to Crudy. Under whose custody was Jeffrey Epstein? Was it the Southern District of New York? I mean, who was responsible ultimately?
Sure, right. So he's in a Bureau of Prisons facility. He is subject to a federal indictment by the United States District Court. This is the U.S. Department of Justice. Bureau of Prisons is a unit of the Department of Justice, consumes a huge amount of the budget, and he is in the custody of the United States Department of Justice by virtue of that. And so even though there is a New York-based examiner who's looking at all this, the coroner, if you will, the homicide, or the suicide examiner, if you will, who's doing all this, plainly working together with Bureau of Prisons people to try to figure out what happened here. But Department of Justice is the responsible party here.
James, one last question, a little off topic. Is Donald Trump currently being impeached?
That is the question of the day, is it not? We thought
I can give you like a minute to respond to that one, Jim. Sure.
And so when I was last here with Dom, or maybe even before the last appearance, we talked about that. There is an article that the headline reads basically, if we're doing this, it certainly is a whimper when it comes to the kind of announcement about this. It's certainly, if that is happening right now, the American public generally does not appreciate that is the case. And again, it goes to this issue of education. Congress needs to be more upfront about this and tell us what we're doing, what our plan is. Again, as I've said before, that is a prosecution memorandum that's out there. It's been out there now by my count. I think it's somewhere around 117, 118 days since the Mueller report was issued. There needs to be some action.
So is that a yes? Impeachment is happening?
I think it is, although who knows? You know, that's the difficulty. Certainly, the Speaker of the House has not necessarily embraced it yet.
James Santelle, we always embrace your appearances. Thank you so much for joining us. Former U.S. Attorney Jim Santelle, thank you. Jessie Opoien, opinion editor at the Cap Times, will be next. More Devil's Advocates, please stick around.
Thank you, Jim.
Absolutely. Good to be with you.
It's all a big lie. It's a big con game.
It's not about me.
I moved on her like a bitch.
Al-Qaeda!
We're going to impeach the motherfucker.
Evil Jews!
Just remember, what you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening. All I want to do is be able to watch.
Amalgamated Transit Union Local 998 is made up of the drivers and mechanics, professionals in Milwaukee. We keep the buses running all night long and all over the city. I'm one of them. After more than 20 years, I have seen it all, from bad drivers to hostile passengers. Just last week, one of my coworkers had a gun pulled on her. Enough is enough. We get Milwaukee to work. We get them home again. Our working conditions are your safety conditions, and we need help to provide improved safety and security for drivers and passengers. Call Chris Aberly at 414-278-4338 and tell him to stand with ATU 998. Make safety and a fair contract a priority.
This message paid for by ATU Local 998.
Our friends over at Madison Liquidators are expanding into a bigger, nicer space just off Pleasant View Road in Middleton to better serve their clients and better display their extensive collection of new and nicer used office furniture. Start online at MadisonLiquidators.com for their complete collection, or go see Kelly to help make your own office plan. MadisonLiquidators.com. Tell them you heard them on Talk 92.7 FM.
Five Nines, your local single-source IT solutions provider, specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
From Milwaukee to Madison, state government shapes our lives for better or worse. Let's talk about it. I'm State Representative Jocasta Zamaripa. Join me for the Jocasta Show, Mondays at 6 p.m. on WRRD, 1510 a.m.
The Devil's Advocates. Political commentary from the back of the class.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, streaming on YouTube and on Facebook. We are on Twitter at Devil Radio. And you can always join us on the phones at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, want to thank our most recent guest to find one, former U.S. Attorney James Santelle, and like to welcome back a good friend, been too long, Jessie Opoien, in her new role, opinion editor with the Cap Times. Jessie, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
you
thank
still
you,
got
Jessie.
my intro music.
We never forget, Jessie.
The classics never go out of style, Jessie.
Never going to shake that one.
No.
Now, Jessie, I want to talk about a little piece you published at the Cap Times today. The Democratic presidential field, it's broad. There's a lot of them, like 20-something. And apparently, you must have been watching some form of reality television. I've sort of sworn off the reality television, but you see an analogy that apparently you feel apt. This is like The Bachelorette, this Democratic field. Explain it to the people, Jessie.
Well, yes, I am a fan of The Bachelorette and the Bachelor franchise. It's a pretty
Isn't
good
everybody?
escape from the day-to-day. More people than I thought.
Honestly, Jessie, I don't know much about it, so you're going to have to help me out.
Oh, man, Tom, you got to catch up. Well, obviously, I'm sure people are familiar. The show's been around for quite some time, but the premise is you've either got a guy or a girl who is the bachelor or the bachelorette, and then there's 20-plus contestants competing for their affections and eventually hoping to get a proposal. But yeah, the most recent season was wrapping up around the same time that the presidential debates were starting up, and I am not the only one who noticed the similarities of it has such a large field, more than 20 people running for the Democratic nomination, and even just 20 who make it into the debates. And so I kind of got to start to feeling like, you have this experience. You're watching The Bachelorette or you're watching the debate, and you see some guy show up on screen, and you're like, has he been here the whole time? Like, I don't know who this one is. And,
are you referencing John Delaney at this moment?
I'm John Delaney is one of the people that has happened to with me. Yeah.
I had the opportunity to meet John Delaney, and he's so inspiring as a candidate. I nearly booed him to his face, Jesse. He'd have been one of the bad bachelors. He would not have gotten a rose, not from Crudy anyways.
No.
Now, our pal... I'm sorry, I said something, didn't let you finish. Jesse, got a
No, I was just going
longer
to say,
thought?
it seems like he's one of the ones that fade into the background for sure.
Well, our pal Tom Perez keeps talking about the Democratic Party field and the fact that we should all be speed dating, something that Dom knows more about than I, perhaps. But, Jesse, you actually watched The Bachelor this year, and pretend like a couple of middle-aged guys, we've been busy with the politics, pretend like we've missed it. For the sake of our broader audience, Jesse, analogize a couple of these specific candidates to the Bachelorette or Bachelor that you think is most analogous in this case.
Okay. Well, it should be stated for starters, this season did not actually end with, it ended with a proposal, but the engagement was broken off. So it's already kind of breaking the norms a little bit.
What happened?
Oh, man, what happened? Well.
What didn't happen? But tell.
Well, Hannah, the Bachelorette, got down to the last two guys she was choosing from. I think it was actually kind of down to the last three, and she chose the one who secretly had a girlfriend back home, and everyone who's watching the show knows this because it came out while the show was airing, but she didn't find out until after she accepted his proposal and ended up breaking off the engagement. So, my analogy for Jed, since he had this kind of secret that he was hiding, he didn't want everyone to talk about it, I think is, even though she's not polling in similar levels, Tulsi Gabbard, I think, has a few things she'd rather people didn't fixate on, didn't talk about. She seems to get a little frustrated when people bring up her sort of non-intervention strategy and the fact that she's been friendly as a result to some dictators. And so, she was my Jed. Chris Harrison has been hosting the show for the entire time, and we've watched him kind of age throughout the process, and he's still hanging around all these young kids in their early 20s. And so I thought, Joe Biden was probably Chris Harrison. Every now and then he does something kind of awkward, and it seems a little uncomfortable, but you feel like he's probably coming from a good place, and he's been sort of integral to this the whole time.
Jessie Opoien, what about my first love, Bernie? Did he get a rose? Would he get... how do you see Bernie in the whole Bachelor sort of lineup?
Bernie didn't fare so well in my Bachelor lineup. Bernie kind of ended up getting designated with the season's villain, Luke P.
Bernie's a villain?
Is it the lack of a comb or a brush, Jesse? What's the problem?
It might be the comb or the brush. No, I think this one probably might not be too pleasing for some people who are supporting him, but they're both pretty divisive characters within, their field. They're both very strong personalities, but there's something compelling about both of them. She kept Luke P around for a really long time. He actually did really well in the competition, and we've seen Bernie Sanders doing better than people expected him to time and time again. And they're both just they wave their hands around a lot and are both very loud, strong personalities.
Are you sure you're not confusing Beto O'Rourke?
Oh, he is. Yes, he's a hand waver too.
And he might leave little scribbly notes for America in the morning, right, Jessie?
he seems, he's a musician. He's got that sort of sensitive guy thing going on, and so I compared him to one of the contestants who ended up being very sweet to Hannah when she was sick and leaving her a bunch of Post-it notes around her room to wake up to.
Now, Jessie, my only endeavor right now is to figure out, are you being sincere and was this an honest effort, or are you in some way chastising the electorate because we just don't deserve this fine body of Dems?
Some of these, this was all done very tongue-in-cheek for sure. I think some of the comparisons are a little bit more spot on than others, and some are pretty goofy. I think the overall takeaway point is just there are so many candidates who are just fading into the background, and you wonder what on earth they're still doing here. And I think that's how it starts to feel a little bit when you're watching The Bachelorette, and there's a guy around that, is just kind of getting kept around for the sake of being there. But certainly not meant to be a very serious critique of any particular candidate.
Now, Jessie, if I remember correctly, you've got some Iowa roots, at least collegiate Iowa roots, and this week is the Iowa State Fair, and that always brings out, deep-fried food on a stick and lots of Dem presidential candidates. Jessie, will you be traveling to Iowa? Will you be inspired enough? I think you went for Scott Walker once upon a time, didn't you?
I did follow Scott Walker to Iowa a lot of times. In fact, I do have Iowa roots. I was actually born there, and then I went to Iowa State, so I've seen my share of Dem and Republican cycles there over the years. And I actually will be going to Iowa, but not for the fair. I'm going to get there right after it ends, going back to visit some friends and family, and I'm just going to miss all those corn dogs and all the candidates looking for.
Oh, that's a damn shame, Jessie.
Really too bad.
Let me ask you, you obviously have some sense of your readership and let's call them the constituency out there in the world. Do you think people are paying close attention to this Democratic field, or do you think there are literally just too many of them and people are frustrated and they want a winnowing of the field? What's your impression?
I don't think I've talked to anyone at this point who feels like it's a good thing that the field is this big. I mean, I think people want variety. They don't want the alternative where it's all coming down to one or two candidates and it feels like there's no choice. But I think that, the debate requirements are going to tighten up in the coming months, and I think that'll probably be a good thing in a lot of people's eyes because it'll take away a little bit of that speed dating element and, actually give people more of an opportunity to get some real answers.
Jessie, got to ask, if you can remember back 4 years, harken back to the last Dem presidential cycle, if you had to draw an analogy from The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, who would Jim Webb be? You remember Jim Webb? He's the guy that killed a guy. Who would Jim Webb be? He didn't get a rose early on, apparently washed out quickly, but do you have an analogy for Jim? If not him, Lincoln Chafee, perhaps.
I'm going to say there's no particular candidate or contestant comes to mind, but there's always every season, there's always one or two kind of goofy contestants who seem to be on there just for a gimmick. Like there was a woman on there who I think, was a dolphin enthusiast, and that was her stated occupation. So probably, one of those contestants that doesn't last very long but makes kind of weird impression based on some quirky thing about them.
How about Marianne Williamson? Can she be the dolphin woman of this elective cycle?
If the dolphin woman had been around this time, I think she definitely would have been Marianne Williamson.
Jessie Opoien, a fine opinion editor, although I'm not sure if she's being serious today. We appreciate you coming around the Devil's Advocates. Jessie, next time in studio for Scherzies.
Definitely. I'll come see you guys next time.
All right. Thank you, Jessie.
Thank you, Jessie. Folks, we are the Devil's Advocates, turning towards the happy hour and your phone calls and Dom's bad analogies.
Come on.
The happy hour is next. Please stick around. Join us on the phones if you so choose. 844-967-2789.
If you missed something on the Devil's Advocates, don't worry. After you get over your shame, you can check out domandcroot.com. Podcasts and interviews updated daily.
It's all a big lie. It's a big con game.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
This is Dom from the Devil's Advocates. You know, in the 7 years that Crudy and I have been doing the show, we have never had a more engaged, dialed in, and motivated audience, and we love them for it. Now is the time for you to reach the greatest audience ever. Call now, advertise with the Devil's Advocates and Real Resistance Radio. Market your products or services, get your message out, join the resistance. Call us at 414-635-0872. That's 414-635-0872, or go to realresistanceradio.com. You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
Immigration changes, endangered species. I'm Ann Cates. The Trump administration may deny green cards to immigrants who use food stamps, Medicaid, or other forms of public assistance. Correspondent Jessica Schneider reports the White House is expanding current rules.
We're merely tailoring the definition of public charge. It used to encourage or include just those who got cash benefits. Well, this time, the administration is sort of broadening that definition and saying that it's not only cash benefits, but it's also, we're going to consider a negative factor, if you will, they call it, if you're receiving Medicaid, food stamps, government subsidized housing. So they're going to look at all of that when determining who gets the permanent legal residency here.
Protections are being eased for endangered species.
Interior Secretary David Bernhardt issued a written statement rolling back protections for endangered species that he says, quote, ensures more resources can go where they will do the most good on the ground conservation, close quote. A former oil and gas industry lobbyist, Bernhardt's executive action means that effects of some projects to obtain or use natural resources can take into account the benefits versus damage to a species. It also puts aside long-term planning for what scientists say is climate change and threats higher, warmer seas will pose. Environmental groups are vowing to go to court to stop the changes. Bob Costantini, Washington.
Trade jitters sank stocks today. Correspondent Steve Kastenbaum.
At the closing bell, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down almost 400 points, roughly 1.5%. The S&P 500 was down 1.25%. Trade war anxiety continues to fuel the volatility, but investors also watched with concern as the interest rate fell on 10-year Treasury bonds. It's almost in line with 2-year Treasury bonds. When it dips below the return rate of the 2-year bonds, that typically signals a recession ahead.
On Wall Street, the S&P closed down 36 points, the Nasdaq off 96. I'm Ann Cates.
Hi, I'm Kelly, and my family owns Madison Liquidators, a company with sustainability as our business model. We are excited to announce that we are moving into a bigger, nicer location, allowing us to serve you better with expanded inventories of both new and used office furniture. Right now, we will give you a great deal because we would much rather move any of our current inventory into your office than our new space. Check out our complete inventory online at madisonliquidators.com or come make a deal off Pleasant View Road in Middleton before moving day.
5 your local single-source IT solutions provider, specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 59s.com.
Hey guys, I'm Maggie Dawn, your lady lawyer, legal eagle, and sensei of economics. Tune into my show, Dawn of the Resistance, live Thursdays and Fridays from 6 to 7 on WRRD 1510 AM. Always streaming live at newstalk1510am.com.
California lawmakers have a month to wrap up work on several controversial and historic measures.
Among them, 2 bills. That one will change the police use of deadly force standard from reasonable to necessary to prevent serious injury or death. Also mandate de-escalation training.
Studies show police killed unarmed young black men at more than 20 times
the rate they kill young white men.
Another bill would allow college athletes to make money off their image, name, and likeness.
These students are treated differently.
Other bills include amendments to the state's first-of-its-kind data privacy law. That amendment seeks to exempt employers who collect data on employees, a bill that would change the so-called gig economy in the state and a tightening of the vaccination laws. Jim Roop, Los Angeles.
Joe Walsh will be joined by ZZ Top, Brad Paisley, Sheryl Crow, and other performers at its music festival to aid military veterans. The Eagles guitarist announced today that tickets for the November 10th benefit concert in Houston go on sale Friday. I'm Ann Cates.
We have
Congresswoman Gwen Moore.
You know, I thought it was really important to share with people my diagnosis of cancer. The Affordable Care Act is the kind of thing that's going to keep me alive for a long, long time. Why? Because they can't throw me off of my health insurance simply because I have cancer. The Affordable Care Act, Obamacare provided for that. They can't raise my rates and my premiums so high beyond community rating and beyond age rating. Obamacare created that. They can't cap the amount of benefits that they are willing to give me over a lifetime. I have medicine that costs $18,000 a month. They can't force me to pay out-of-pocket costs beyond a certain point. All of that happened because of Obamacare. Thank you, Obama.
You can listen to the Devil's Advocates interviews at DomandCroot.com. Click on the podcast tab and select interviews. That's DomandCroot.com.
For WRRD and WTTN, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. Wisconsin elections officials are considering spending $800,000 to replace outdated equipment, update software, and further improve computer security as the state prepares for the 2020 presidential election. The Wisconsin Elections Commission is also planning to introduce a program that would lend new computers to municipalities with outdated operating systems. Some of the systems are so old that they no longer receive security updates, and hundreds of them use Microsoft's Windows 7, which will no longer get free security updates after January 14th. Outside tonight, rain, likely lows in the mid-60s. Tomorrow, partly sunny with a high around 78 in Milwaukee, 73 in Madison. You're listening to WRRD and WTTN.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Croot.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dom, we are sliding into the 5 o'clock happy hour, the first one of the week. And I'm happy we had a fine guest. Want to thank her, Jessie Opoien, opinion editor at the Cap Times. And I was thinking, how'd you get stuck with that awful walk-up music? And I thought back to the time when there was the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. And if you'll recall, I was challenged by Mary Burke. And it wasn't just me. It was me and Belling and our pal who recently retired from the Sunday morning show, Mike Goucher. Mary Burke challenged the three of us, and I took up the challenge, and Mike Goucher was on the West Coast, apparently did not, and Belling, being Belling, didn't acknowledge she even was alive. And then I challenged Jessie Opoien, and I was thinking, well, that's because she did Ice Ice Baby, but that's not the song that we played for her. She had just slipped down Ice Ice Baby, and Dom said, I'm going to throw an OPP in there. You know, Opoien, lots of O's and P's.
Jessie OPP Opoien. That was always kind of the thing. We love us some Jessie. We've hell, I think she started
a fine rapper as well. If you've not heard her do her rendition of Vanilla Ice's Ice Ice Baby, Oh, it's powerful.
Oh, she lays
it's
it
moving
down. I think we actually have a recording of it somewhere. I'll have to see if we can track it down one of these days.
Because she didn't actually
journalist and friend.
She did.
Go ahead.
But failed to pour cold water over herself in a timely fashion. She wrapped it out instead.
She's always got to put her twist on it. Hence,
Never live it
opinion
down.
editor.
It's been far too long. Jesse, thanks for coming back around. You know who hasn't been on this show in far too long?
Who?
Either the governor or the lieutenant governor of the fire state of Wisconsin.
Have either of them
Tony
been in the
Evers.
news lately?
Do you realize this new gubernatorial team has not appeared on this fine radio product since their inauguration?
Really?
Since the day before Election Day, if memory serves.
Wow.
But,
so
they didn't need us anymore after
we can
that.
Actually accurately say that Governor Evers has been on the radio show with us live as much as Governor Walker was. That's a
correct,
accurate statement.
Yes.
All right.
Now, I have been, although technically I did chase Scott Walker down to a couple of press conferences and threw a couple of left-wing questions at him, and he answered them with about as much warmth and respect as I get from the new governor's administration. But anyways, here's why I bring up the gubernator, Tony Evers. He's shaking a fist at Donald Trump today, Dom. Let me read from the strongly worded press release. I'm sure Trump will sit up and take notice, straighten up and fly right and all that kind of stuff. Governor Evers calls on President Trump to listen to farmers and unproductive trade wars. As it is written here on a press release, I got my formerly nicotine-stained hands.
Come on, man. You can't. No. You can't do that. You just can't do that.
Governor Tony, well, they're still nicotine-stained. Governor Tony Evers today called on President Donald Trump to listen to farmers and put an end to the unnecessary trade war between the United States and our international partners, including China. The president's never-ending tariffs are having a direct negative impact on many industries in Wisconsin, but perhaps none more than agriculture, an $88 billion industry in Wisconsin that employs 1 out of every 9 workers in our state. Governor Evers knows that when farmers thrive, our rural communities thrive, and the ripple effect continues across the entire state. In the letter, Governor Evers notes that one tweet can harm thousands of Wisconsin citizens who make their living in the agricultural industry. As many farmers will tell you, aid payments cannot make up for what they've lost financially or personally. Seems very much like
socialism.
Yes. A government check simply does not make up for the pride they felt knowing they were getting a fair price for their high-quality corn, soybeans, and ginseng. Governor Evers is focusing on maintaining Wisconsin's successful relationships abroad and investing in programs that help Wisconsin producers gain access to global markets and improve their presence in local ones. Here's a quote from the gubernator, the new one that doesn't appear on the show, not the old one.
That didn't appear on the show. Yeah.
Yes. Farmers want more than government aid. They deserve better than short-sighted trade wars that do lasting damage to their businesses and their heritage. They have told us what we can do to support them, and the tariffs are not on that list. Well, boom, man. Oh, Trump shaking in his boots now. Stop the tariffs, Trump.
I mean, of course, I guess I'd rather have him say it than not, but perhaps it would be more impactful if he got with, I don't know, whatever farming associations out there and maybe grab some Republicans, and get a coalition together, because this is truly impacting the state in a very negative fashion. And even Republican Senator Ron Johnson has pointed that out. So, I mean, this is
We're not over the hump. Johnson told
No.
Trump, who claimed while in Wisconsin about 3 weeks ago, oh, Wisconsin farmers, they're so happy. They're over the hump now. No, they're not. No, they're not.
So my understanding is this governor, endeavors to be perhaps a little bipartisan. This would have been a fine opportunity to work with some reasonable Republicans to reach out to the administration and say, hey, here are the real impacts going on here in the state of Wisconsin. It's not just Tony Evers, a Democrat. It's not just Ron Johnson, a Republican. It's everybody who was concerned with these tariffs, and perhaps we should reconsider. I mean, it's a great opportunity. I'd rather have it than not, but it could have been so much more.
Well, it wasn't even a strongly written press release, Tom. It was just sort of a press release. Words on a page that had no impact in any way, shape, or form.
We're talking about it. Now it's got a huge impact.
Oh, I'm sure you'll come on the show later this week then.
Yeah, right. We'll have to, reach out once again and invite the governor.
Open invitation. Gubernator Evers, you're always welcome here. Don't you feel welcome?
Always. 844-967-2789. Everyone.
Is it Tony calling? Is it Tony
welcome
calling?
here. Tony, Mandela, Robert from Dallas. You're up. Happy hour, Robert. What do you got for us today?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good, man.
Yeah, I heard your last guest talk about how Bernie wouldn't get a rose, and I don't know if you saw the donor map that was done after the second debate. It looked like Bernie had like 750,000 individual contributors, followed by Warren at about 400,000, and everyone else in the field was less than 250,000 individual donors. His biggest supporters were postal workers, teachers, Walmart employees, Starbucks employees. So definitely seems like a lot of people would be willing to give Bernie the rose in terms of the nomination. And they also flipped the chart and they showed who had the most billionaires. So guys like Biden, Cory Booker, they were way up there. Bernie had 0. I think Warren had 2 that were back in their campaign. So it really showed, where the grassroots is. And hopefully that's an indication of how the field will start to get whittled down here. So
well, Robert, my understanding is Bernie's had somewhere north of 2 million individual contributors. I think Elizabeth Warren announced she had reached 1 million, a very big threshold, but Bernie's way ahead.
Yep.
And
that might have been the last quarter, and I just took it out of context. I didn't realize it was that high, so it's even more impactful. Wow.
Yeah, he's way ahead, and I would say seemingly Bernie Sanders has had a warm reception in Iowa, and I wouldn't suspect any less of Bernie. We understand he might have as many as 25,000 volunteers on the ground in Iowa, and that's going to matter a lot. Iowa goes first. Iowa's a caucus state. You got to show up, and you got to get yours to show up, and they got to go through this whole arcane process of going and standing in the corner and listening to other party speeches and the Buttigieg people try to convince the Delaney people, both of them, to come join them. And it gets really weird. But here's what I did see about Bernie Sanders, Robert. I appreciate your call. But I'm going to make another feel the burn observation, Dom. Raw Story's got it. Bernie Sanders acing the electability test as another poll shows Senator crushing Trump in the general. As Jake Johnson reports, originally at Common Dreams, this is the 15th straight poll that shows Bernie defeating Trump. Bolstered by strong support from independent and young voters, Senator Bernie Sanders would roundly defeat President Donald Trump in the 2020 general election matchup, according to a Survey USA poll. The poll showed Sanders, a senator from Vermont, in 2020 Democratic presidential contender, beating Trump by 8 percentage points. Now, I've seen similar polling, Bernie ahead up to 10 or 11. The survey also showed former Vice President Joe Biden defeating Trump by the same margin. Here's a few of the quick observations. Candidates such as Senators Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris edged out Trump in potential runoffs, but their leads weren't wide enough to overcome the margin of error, Newsweek reported. South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg was measured at 42%, 2 points behind Trump in a potential matchup. So we hear about this a lot, electability. One other thing that I think's very, just take note of if you'd be so kind, Dom. In response to the survey, the Sanders campaign pointed towards the senator's strength among independent voters as evidence that he is the candidate best suited to take on Trump in the general election. According to Survey USA poll, Sanders, the 2020 candidate viewed most favorably by Democratic voters, would defeat Trump by 10 percentage points among independents. The survey showed Biden defeating Trump among independents by a smaller margin of 6%. Here's a quote from Fez Shakir. He's a friend of ours. He is Bernie Sanders' campaign manager. Yet another poll finds Bernie Sanders would trounce Donald Trump in a head-to-head matchup. If it were any other candidate's name, I believe elite circles would find this consistent stat newsworthy for the electability argument. Sanders comes out on top of the Democratic pack among independent voters who prefer him to Trump by 10 points. Well said, if I did say so myself.
You said it. Now, I want to be clear. While Bernie beat Trump by 10, doesn't Biden also beat Trump by 10?
But not amongst independents. And that is consistently...
So Bernie's up by 10 among independents, and what was Biden at?
Biden by 6 amongst independents.
Okay.
Biden has more support of the true blue team. You know, the Democrats, the party Dems, like Biden better. And they're more likely to vote for Biden, is my understanding. Bernie Sanders does better with independent voters. And we look at his success in the state of Wisconsin, at least in the primary in 2016, won 71 of 72 counties. And what's it all going to come down to, Dom? Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. So the question becomes, who is the most electable candidate for the upper Midwest? And I don't think it's Amy Klobuchar. And I don't think with a few of the gaffes that our boy Biden's had of late, Dom, I don't think he's getting stronger as a candidate. I think, if anything, he's getting weaker.
Well, if anything, he's consistent. I mean, he's...
Well, consistently gaff-prone.
Yes, he's consistent. That's what he's been. That's what he's always going to be.
Well, one last thought. I think Elizabeth Warren is surging in Iowa. We've seen her the beneficiary of new polling. And Joe Biden's still apparently the front runner there. But he's off, and Elizabeth Warren's moving up, and she's got big crowds, and Bernie's got big crowds. And I'm still feeling the burn. Although Elizabeth Warren, she'd be a nice plan 1A. Come back with us. Want to hear from you. 844-967-2789. It's the happy hour, and it's happier with you on the phones.
So, folks, let's polka tonight and get to work tomorrow.
You can leave right now.
I think the criticism will be dissipated as we move forward.
Hi, I'm Anton Capella, Chief Technology Officer at Five Nines. Five Nines is more than just our name. It's the level of service you can expect. We provide 99.999% uptime. That's the highest availability performance you can get. You have enough to worry about with your business data, web, security, and cloud services, so we'll manage your IT so you don't have to. Visit 59s.com. That's the number 5NINES.com.
Have a drink at Regano's Roman Coin. This neighborhood corner tavern is as classic as the street it occupies. Family owned and operated since 1966, Regano's Roman Coin is located in a former Pabst Tide House on historic Brady Street, serving an array of craft beers with a focus on Wisconsin breweries. Also, weekly drink specials, trivia on Wednesdays, seasonal sporting events, parties hosted for all occasions, and pet friendly. Open 11 a.m. Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Saturday and Sunday, closed on Monday. Regano's Roman Coin, Milwaukee's pet friendly, cash only order and classic corner tavern. This is Dom from the Devil's Advocates. You know, in the 7 years that Crudy and I have been doing the show, we have never had a more engaged, dialed in, and motivated audience, and we love them for it. Now is the time for you to reach the greatest audience ever. Call now, advertise with the Devil's Advocates and Real Resistance Radio. Market your products or services, get your message out, join the resistance. Call us at 414-635-0872. That's 414-635-0872, or go to realresistanceradio.com.
Free and equal education is and has always been a cornerstone to this nation. Yet our public school systems, once the envy of the world, has never faced more scrutiny than right now. Caught between political bickering and big business cash grabs, our schools are under attack, and the people that stand to lose the most are our children. Join Dr. Tim Slecker for Busted Pencils Radio. Educated educators talking education. Tuesday nights at 7, right here on WRRD 1510 AM, Milwaukee.
The Devil's Advocates, making radio great again.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Mark Knopfler, 70 years old today. Fancy Brian, throwing some Dire Straits out for everybody. You can join us as well, 844-967-2789.
Now, Dominic, Tony Evers shook a fist in a worded press release to President Donald Trump, and it will have little or no impact, I suspect. But here would have been a topic that I think the governor could have picked up on. It's also the 1-year anniversary of when Donald Trump was out tweeting the encouragement of the boycott of Harley-Davidson Motor Company. Yeah. It's been a year. Ben Wickler, the new DPW chair, noted that. Maybe Tony could have thrown something in the worded press release. Might have been strongly worded then.
And if I recall, some of the Wisconsin politicians were slow to defend one of Wisconsin's most historic companies. 844-967-2789. Defend it. Wisco, Paul, you're up. Thanks for calling. Happy Monday, Paul. What do you got?
Hey, Paul.
Hey, happy Monday to the Devils. And thanks for taking my call.
Yeah.
I just went by the McKenzie Center. I think you know where that is, Crudy, out by Opoien. 92.7 was coming in loud and clear there.
Yeah,
and
baby.
What I'd like to say, that's Southern Columbia County, and pretty soon I'll be heading into Northern Dane County. For Tony not to use your station is suicidal, because radio right now is tearing him apart. And he's going to get blamed for signing this budget. They're going to shove it on him. Your car titles being the price of, what would they say, registration fees and such getting raised.
Yeah, like $100 a year
1st?
come October 1st, I believe, Paul.
Right, and he's going to get blamed for that stuff, and he's not on the radio defending it. I, for the life of me, I do not understand a lot of people in the Democratic Party not using the radio. It just doesn't. It boggles my mind. Not that I thought Ben would change that some, but apparently I don't know what it is with Tony. I'm glad Walker is.
Well,
not
Ben's using the medium, the new DPW chair, showing his acumen in messaging. I think he's smart to do so. I'm not at all clear, between the bad headlines that Tony Evers often earns and those that I would say Lieutenant Governor is unfairly earned, everything from parking tickets to property taxes to whether or not the guy graduated from college. I mean, did not come out and defend yourself, or, if nothing else, Paul, join us and give Dan Bice the middle finger. There's lots of ways you could utilize this platform, but, I'm only going to ask a couple more times ever, Paul, and then I'm not going to care, because why would I? They don't care. I don't care.
Well, that's a sad situation. You have to come out and defend yourself. You have a great listening audience, and not that you have FM in Madison, a lot of people listening out there. So I guess it would just be a one-term governor, which would be really sad. But well, anyway, thanks for taking my call, and I did what I can. Have a good day.
Well,
right on, Paul.
Paul.
Thank you.
You know what would be really sad, and maybe Tony Evers, maybe he's only aspiring to be a one-term governor. Maybe he doesn't have that Tommy Thompson, that blind ambition of a Scott Walker. Maybe he just try to change the political tone. But if they've got a lieutenant governor who is the future governor in waiting, if that's how they envision Mandela Barnes, why are they punishing his political future because Tony Evers doesn't like me? I mean, that's really asinine. Mandela's got a future. He's got more than one more term to serve the state of Wisconsin, and he needs occasionally to go out and explain himself or defend himself or to challenge what's being written about him in the Daniel Bice columns or being said about him on right-wing talk radio. And I appreciate that, they did the barnstorming over in the Isthmus, but last time I checked, that was the latest article that got him in trouble.
What? So did Mandela Barnes graduate from college?
No.
Did he ever say he did?
Yes, but they blamed that on a staffer exuberance.
But I've seen pictures of him with his cap and gown.
Well, did Joe ever walk across stage?
I don't know. It'd be a great conversation to have if he came on. Did we reach out?
I texted him and his chief of staff earlier today and noted it had been over 7 months since he appeared on the show. Might be a good time just to come
curious.
And set the record straight.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get caught up on all those articles. I didn't get to that last week, but yes, certainly. We'd like to know. Inquiring minds want to know.
I didn't even listen to the radio last week.
Yeah, you did.
Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. You're listening right now. 844-967-2789. Phone lines open for you.
If politics is boring, you're doing it wrong. Check out more at domandcroot.com.
I think the criticism will be dissipated.
Listen to the Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m.
Go back to where they came from, help those people come back and show us how to do it. That was the full quote.
They didn't come from anywhere. They were here, dude. Are you employed, Chris?
I am.
Do you have an HR department?
Yes, I do. I'm a union machinist.
Oh, do you work with minorities?
I do.
If you walked up to one of your coworkers who was a minority, you told them to go back to where they came from, would HR have a conversation with you about that, do you think?
It depends on the person, really. I mean, some people are...
If somebody complained to HR about what you said, do you think they would have a conversation with you about that? Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, but why? Why would they pull you off of your job to discuss this with you, and what do you think their beef would be?
Because they're trying to protect the corporation from lawsuits.
Lawsuit for what?
Discrimination, racism.
So if your coworkers, if you say it to your coworker, it could be described as discrimination or racism. But when the president says it to the world, it's not racist?
No. Yikes.
You are listening to WRRD 1510 AM, Waukesha, Milwaukee. Always streaming at newstalk1510am.com.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in negotiating for better wages, hours, and working conditions, and be part of the most powerful union in North America. Teamsters Local 344 covers sales and service throughout Southeast Wisconsin and package and airlines statewide. Contact Teamsters Local 344 at 414-258-4545 or at local344.org.
Amalgamated Transit Union Local 998 is made up of the drivers and mechanics, professionals in Milwaukee. We keep the buses running all night long and all over the city. I'm one of them. After more than 20 years, I have seen it all, from bad drivers to hostile passengers. Just last week, one of my coworkers had a gun pulled on her. Enough is enough. We get Milwaukee to work. We get them home again. Our working conditions are your safety conditions, and we need help to provide improved safety and security for drivers and passengers. Call Chris Aberly at 414-278-4338 and tell him to stand with ATU 998. Make safety and a fair contract a priority.
This message paid for by ATU Local 998.
If you're like a lot of companies, you know you need IT, but you aren't sure where to start. That's where Five Nines comes in. Hi, I'm Todd Stryker, President and CEO. For almost 15 years, Five Nines has been providing IT solutions to companies just like yours. We'll show you the solutions that are right for your business and give you the roadmap to success in the future. Find us at 5nines.com. That's the number 5, NINES.com.
For WRRD and WTTN, I'm Stu Daniels with your headlines. As calls for gun reform grow louder, Wisconsin's Republicans still aren't hearing the cries. Senator Ron Johnson last week said he wouldn't support expanded background checks. The state's 5 Republican members of the House of Representatives have not commented on gun reform since the mass shootings last weekend and have declined to answer questions from the Journal-Sentinel. And the Brewers lost to the Rangers yesterday, final score 1-0. They have today off, then start a 2-game series with the Twins tomorrow at home. Outside tonight, rain, likely lows in the mid-60s. Tomorrow, partly sunny with highs around 78 in Milwaukee, 73 in Madison. For Wednesday, partly sunny with a chance of rain and highs around 73 in Milwaukee, 67 in Madison. You're listening to WRRD and WTTN.
The Devil's Advocates, radio for the 99%.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, the happy hour, it continues. If only all could see the fancy Brian Ice Bucket Challenge. Sans clothes. Although you were wearing a six-pack, I understand. Covering up the bit parts, shrinkage, the ice-cold effect of the beer and all that kind of stuff.
The punchline is, unlike other Ice Bucket Challenges, my ice is natural.
And it was natural ice beer?
Was it natty ice?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well done, Brian. Well played, young man.
844-967-2789. Let's go to the phones.
Kathy from Madison, you're up. Thanks for calling, Kathy. What do you got for us today?
Hi. Just wanted to say it's not what I wanted to call about, but when I graduated from the UW, you could go to the graduation and wear a gown even though you still had a credit or two to finish.
Sure.
And you had, you agreed to do that. Just background.
Kathy, I was under the impression that when I graduated and crossed the stage, that I was still subject to going back and fulfilling a Phi Ed credit, and they sent me the diploma, and I never went back.
Yes. But anyway, you still could do it. So he still could have been in a gown and still, just been shy of whatever he was shy of. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about, if you don't mind, was
yes,
I heard just the other day, it could have been on your show, I'm not positive, but maybe not. But Tony Evers was talking about the gun issue and what he thought could be done in Wisconsin. And I really want him to succeed. But I was so unhappy that the first thing he said was, well, I don't think we're going to get to the extent that we talk about getting rid of the military-style weapons. And it's like, excuse me for saying this, great balls of fire, why not at least try? And because there's so many things that have happened in our history that people never thought would become something that people would vote for or whatever. And so I was very disappointed that I know it's good to be realistic, but in something like this, you have to go for what is really the best and getting rid of, in my opinion, rid of those weapons and the things that can make them fire 100 rounds, is the thing that you have to go after. So I'm hoping that he'll change his mind and think more positively and at least, work toward it. And I'm also thinking that in Wisconsin, we need to be coming up with some ballot initiatives. They did that in Michigan, and those ballot initiatives can bring voters out, and we have to have ballot initiatives that will bring Democratic voters out. It could be that we'd have to go to getting rid of those weapons on a ballot initiative. And I think people should think about that. And I know people, if somebody comes on the air and says, contact us, we should start working on this. I would certainly be happy to start working with it because they did a marvelous job with it in Michigan and made a big change in the outcome of the election.
Kathy, really appreciate the call. Here's a few thoughts. Michigan has a different referendum process than Wisconsin does. Their referendums are binding, and our referendums are not. However, having said that, I still think you make a very shrewd point, Kathy. I think in some small part, Tony Evers owes his election to legalize marijuana being on the ballot, or medicinal marijuana. It was on lots and lots of municipalities and counties, Kathy, and Tony Evers won by a very narrow margin. And although I understand that quite a few Republicans voted for legalized marijuana, I think it's probably perhaps some people inspired to indeed vote in referendums that help Tony Evers get elected. Now, here's where my criticism of the governor comes in. It's not that I don't like what's in Tony's heart. I believe his policy avocations, he believes in what I believe in, Kathy, for the most part. What he doesn't believe in is fighting. He doesn't aspire. He doesn't inspire. And I think it was the example of Elizabeth Warren at the last presidential debate. She looked at John Delaney, I believe it was, and said, why would you take all the effort to run for president to tell us all the things you're not willing to fight for? And Kathy, my critique of Tony Evers was he was such a front runner from the get-go. There was not any legitimate challenge during the gubernatorial primary in the state of Wisconsin. God knows I tried briefly, but he was not challenged on his record. Really didn't have to go fight or defend himself. He just had the overwhelming lead in all the polls. See, at the finish line was basically his campaign stance. And for those that projected upon Tony, well, he's going to go fight for us. You were wrong. That's not this guy. He is not a fighter. He's a nice guy. He's probably a hell of a euchre player. But, Kathy, he is never going to strongly fight and advocate for the people of Wisconsin. That makes me sad to say it.
All right, but let me be the devil's advocate here, if I may. Can you strongly fight and advocate without jumping up and down and shaking your fist and in doing it in a manner which you describe as strongly fighting? You know, speak softly, carry a big stick. I mean, people got different styles.
But what's the big stick?
Well,
he's
I don't know.
carrying?
We're not behind the scenes.
It's not a veto pen.
We don't know. Well, he said it.
It's not advocation for legalized marijuana.
I'm not clear he used it.
Well, Dominic, come on. You know, okay, then let me judge him on his effectiveness as a leader. He signed a Republican budget. You know, I've criticized him for that. Effectively, he's been the target of lawsuits subsequent to signing the Republican budget, so it didn't get him any graces from the Republican side. And, you know, quite frankly, most of his big avocations, and I know I'm legalized marijuana, but there are more important issues, God knows, things like expansion of Medicaid in the state of Wisconsin. Well, if Tony wasn't going to fight for it in his budget, then it doesn't happen. So the big stick, small stick, quiet talker, non-fighter, however you want to describe the man, be clear, ineffective leader. That's my major critique.
Given these circumstances, knowing he does not have the Senate or the Assembly, right? Knowing he does not have two willing dance partners, the only thing he can do is what? Hold the budget hostage, and since he didn't do that, he's an ineffective leader in your opinion.
But all the legislative leaders on the Republican side would have come up for election well before Tony Evers. He had the pressure of the next elective cycle. He just chose not to utilize it. Chuck Qualla pointed that out. You know, I think it's an excellent point Qualla made. He called his budget disastrous. And I'm not here to keep beating this dead horse. But if Kathy's holding out hope that Tony Evers is going to change his stripes and find courage, that's not going to happen. Not courage in the verbal sense, in the bully pulpit sense, in the go out there and fight the good fight sense. You know, a strongly worded tweet or whatever this weekly worded presser to Donald Trump is, that doesn't even move newspaper columnists to get on your side. That doesn't convince anyone to do anything except laugh at you for your ineffectiveness. Being an ineffectual leader is almost worse than being a corrupted bastard like Trump or Walker was. At least we knew what motivated them. If you're motivated by altruistic beliefs, Tony, then go fight for them.
844-967-2789. Brock from Horicon. We fight for you, Brock. What do you got for us?
I appreciate it. I called Governor Evers' office today and urged the nice lady that answered the phone to talk to the governor. And not that I expect him to jump up and down and yell. That's not his style. We got what we got. But on referendums that he supports, he has to show up. And if his version of jumping up and down is showing up county to county and saying, I support this referendum, I support that referendum, I would really like to see this passed, that's probably what you're going to get out of Tony Evers' best case scenario. I don't know what you do with that budget because you have to do something with it. And I think the election pressure is a good idea. I don't know if he was aware of that. I don't know how he couldn't have been.
How could he not been aware, Brock?
Yeah.
He's got a political team around him.
Based on his actions, that seems to be the case. I don't know how he could not be aware. Maybe he had one of those ostrich hats where his head was buried in the sand. I don't know, but I think you have to do something. You had to do something with the roads, and the education system had to have money. They still aren't at the levels they were at 10 years ago, but I don't know what you do if both your hands are tied and your one leg is. You got to show up and do what you do best. And if his version of fighting is showing up and saying, I support this bill, I support that bill, the press release thing is a ridiculous idea, and he's not getting good advice on that. That's very obvious to me. But I don't know what choice he has other than to show up and use his style, but that's not going to be jumping up and down like you said. And it is a little disappointing. I am happy he was willing to veto what he did and try to do what he could. But I don't know.
But he got sued over that, Brock. That's not even a done deal. His.
No, it never will be. It never will be. But you got to make a run at it. You got to play the cards you got, and he's got three ones and a zero or whatever shit hand he's got. You just got to do it. Hang up. Let's watch it.
Thank you for the call, Brock. Certainly got to deal with the cards you're dealt. 844-967-2789.
But what was your argument at the time, Dom? And I'm not holding you accountable for Tony Evers' actions, but he failed.
I think the same my argument at the time was basically what Brock brought up. We got roads to deal with. We got schools to deal with. Yeah, you can apply the pressure, but in the meantime, we're basically saying that the budget will be a continuing resolution of the Walker budget. I'm not clear that having that fight to that
and
degree
there will be all kinds of pressure.
Yeah, I understand.
On the Republicans to come to the table and negotiate,
or not.
And he failed. Okay, but he failed to take the opportunity that presented itself to veto the entirety of the budget. What part he did veto to increase the school funding, he's being sued over. He's got a fast track to the Supreme Court where he's going to get his ass handed to him.
You realize any chance that the Republicans get to take that avenue against Tony Evers, they're going to do it, whether or not it's a valid legal position or not. I mean, you get that, right?
It doesn't have to be.
Right. So no matter what he does, no matter what he does, that's what's going to happen.
Well,
right?
you got to have some justification for the lawsuit, and he handed it to him, to the Republicans with his veto, his line item veto that increased the funding. That was apparently a bridge too far for the Republicans, right? So not only didn't he use any of the leverage he would have had over the entirety of the budget to put forth any of his legislative priorities, he also got sued after he signed the Republican budget and came off, to my opinion, as quite ineffectual.
Well, it's easy to say that, Kurt, and I'm not disagreeing with your position, but I'm saying that I assume they knew the calculation. They knew what they had, and they made the determination
that they're good at politics.
That they made the determination to continue forward for the best circumstances of the state. Because although you're very confident, Curdy, that the pressure would be brought to bear upon the Republicans, I'm not so confident, and we're never going to know. But I would say this:
but he signed the Republican buddy. He signed their budget anyways, and then they still sued him.
Oh, okay, and if he didn't sign it and vetoed the whole thing, we'd be at the old funding levels, and school starts next month.
And the pressure would be on the Republicans for not passing
and you don't think it would be on
was,
Evers? You don't think that the extra $500 million?
So what? He doesn't have a re-election for 3.5 years.
But he's still going to have the pressure.
He's got no electoral price.
You're going to tell me that there's no price
have.
to be paid when the school systems don't have $500 million they could have had he signed it because he wants to stick it to the Republicans. I mean,
he wasn't sticking it to the Republicans.
I'm just telling you, I'm not convinced that the Republicans would have felt the pressure that you think they would have felt. I don't know why you think
when he signed their budget, they didn't
like
feel any, and they sued him anyways.
Exactly.
So what a great plan he came up with.
Schools are funded, and there's at least a plan for roads, right?
Judge him by
you'd rather have schools not funded to the degree that they are, right?
Paul
That's
just
what
told
you're
you.
saying.
May I? Paul just told you he's about to get blamed for the roads. Not only are they bad, I just drove all the way across the state of Wisconsin and back, god-awful roads. But not only that, Tony Evers is going to get all the blame because the Republicans wouldn't raise the road tax. And what happened? Registration fees are going to spike in October, and it's all going to be Tony Evers' fault. They're going to blame it on Tony.
Okay, so let's walk through this now. If it had not happened, and presumably that increase is going to give funding for roads. Now there's no funding for roads. Now we're under Walker's continuing resolution budget.
You act like that budget would have been the case forever. They signed Walker's budget again, my friend.
And you act like
they signed another version of Walker's
act like
budget.
That Walker vetoing the whole budget would have changed a damn
You mean
thing.
Evers?
Evers. That Evers... If Evers would have signed that budget that did not,
Walker's budget,
let me be very clear here. You're suggesting that if Evers had rejected the Republican budget,
the Walker budget 3.0.
Well, the Walker budget 3.0 would have been the continuing resolutions if he vetoed it, Crudy.
Okay, so he got the Voss Fitzgerald budget 3.0. My bad.
But what makes you think it would be solved by March or by November or December? What makes you think this would be solved anytime soon?
Because all the pressure would be on Foss and
you keep
Fitzgerald.
saying that, but just because you say it doesn't make it so, Crudy. What pressure? What kind of pressure? We have the same funding under Walker. This is what Evers did. Talk to him.
You don't think the school administrators, and I know you keep going back and hearkening back like this is the federal government and we're under some sort of continuing resolution, but it's not the same.
It's an example,
It's
Crudy.
not, yeah, but it's a bad example because it's not the same. It's not like we would continuously use the Walker budget forever. That's not how it works. You must have a new budget. At some point, the pressure's on, the heat's under the kettle, and it boils over. And either either Evers blinks or the Republicans blink. But before we even got to that, Evers just closed his eyes and signed away and got his ass sued. And came off looking all the worse for wear.
So we must have another budget. When exactly must we have a budget? And what happens if it's vetoed and they don't come to terms, Crudy?
What do you mean if it's vetoed and they don't come to terms?
We must have another budget, right? You're saying a continuing resolution.
Eventually,
As
yeah,
an example
you must have a budget.
I use
They
the
don't
example
pass
of a continuing
resolutions.
Of course you don't. It's like it because they exist. They continue on under the old budget, right?
You continue to spend.
Okay,
Nothing happens.
Like the old budget, right?
Nothing happens except the pressure of the electorate.
Says Crudy.
Well,
and
show
what
me
makes you
some
think the
example where
Republicans are going to
something blows
respond to
up?
any pressure that you think would be applied to them, and that the Democrats would be spared the same pressure that the schools are going to want to apply because now they don't have the $500
They're not
million.
in charge. The Republicans are in charge. The pressure goes with the party in charge. The majority party would have the obligation to pass a budget that was acceptable to the governor of the state of Wisconsin, or they can overturn his veto. But he didn't put any pressure on. He didn't show any fight. He didn't come around here. So what exactly did he do other than just show that he was incapable of this very big job that he won in large part because of legalized marijuana referendums that he didn't even have the good sense to fight for?
Do we need to put legalized marijuana referendums on the ballot again in the next elective cycle?
If it was that simple, yeah. But, if you're just going to win and then not advocate for legalized marijuana, well, then don't bother. Because pretty soon the electorate says, you know what? If you're not with us, at least that other party, the Scott Walkers of the world, at least they got some stuff done.
Yeah, you're going to vote for
Walker.
Walker.
Most of what they
You're
did.
going to vote for Walker.
Me? No.
Yeah, okay.
But enough swing voters in the state of Wisconsin did that the guy won election 3 times in this state, and Tony Evers only won by 30,000 votes, and most of those came from stoners like us. You're welcome, sort of. 844-967-2789. One segment left today. If you want a part, better dial now.
You gonna do something or just stand there and bleed?
Who here likes a good story about a bridge?
Hey guys, this is Maggie Dawn, host of Dawn of the Resistance, live Thursdays and Fridays from 6 to 7 p.m. Starting August 22nd, I'm going to be joined in studio with Dr. Fran Kaplan and Reggie Jackson, Executive Director of America's Black Holocaust Museum, to do 6 shows about race in America. On August 22nd and 23rd, we're going to talk about the history you never learned, facts about race in America. On August 29th and 30th, we're going to talk about why we think the way we do, unpacking implicit bias. Last, on September 5th and 6th, we're going to talk about why what we say and what we do matters. Getting woke, staying woke, and doing woke things. So white folks, you got questions you've never asked? Write them down, tune in, and call in starting August 22nd through September 6th on Dawn of the Resistance on WRRD 1510 AM, always streaming live at newstalk1510am.com.
Hey, Al Bachman here. My family has owned and operated Bachman Construction since 1954. Since opening our doors, understanding the needs of our clients, and striving to exceed their expectations have been the cornerstones of how we do business. Quality is our foundation. We are proud of providing quality service and establishing a tradition of excellence in the Madison community for more than 65 years. Give Bachman Construction a call today and let us know how we can use our 3 generations of experience to make your next project a success.
Businesses today thrive and survive with technology. At 5 Nines, we provide businesses with the IT tools they need to stay relevant. We offer enterprise-level solutions at competitive prices. I'm Todd Stryker, President and CEO of Five Nines. Let us manage your IT so you can focus on more important things, like running your business. Check us out at 5nines.com. That's the number 5, NINES.com.
%60 of the time, they're right every time. Dom and Cruz are the Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Last segment of the day. You can join us on the phones if you got something to say. 844-967-2789. Let's jam on the phones. Dan from Beaver Dam. Welcome to the show, man. What do you got for us? Oh, hang on. 1 second. Damn it. Here we go. All right, Dan, what do you got?
I love how fired up you are on the phone. Get him, Crudy. Get him. Now all we have to do is figure out the gerrymandering. I'm not sure how you fix it or what you do with the budget. I don't think it's a good idea that it refreshes every year, but at least we're not against some artificial debt ceiling thing where we end up with no money. I don't know how you take.
Well, they just toss and scoop anyways.
They're in. Yeah,
Dan, they artificially balance the budget every 2 years in the state of Wisconsin.
I would agree.
And if Scott Walker's got debt left over, he just tosses and scoops it into the next budgetary cycle. As long as you got a dollar in your pocket, you meet the statutory requirements, Dan.
I would agree with that, and I don't know why Republican voters don't understand that. That was his whole mantra when he was the county executive, and that was his whole mantra as governor. I don't even know if it was rob Peter to pay Paul. It was rob Peter and rob Paul, and don't worry about the consequences going forward because there wasn't anybody that was going to beat him, apparently, in a gubernatorial election for several terms.
Well, and Dan, he could get up there and just talk a bunch of BS and say 250,000 jobs. That's all he did this first term. I'm gonna get 250,000 jobs. Of course, he just said it and said it and said it. Had really no plan. Literally, there's like a 1 page of paper, 2 sides, I think 6 bullet points. Plan that was just a bunch of BS. Cut taxes, end regulation, red tape, that kind of stuff. It was
Kurt Bauer, the head of WMC, I think he's the CEO over there. We were at a WMC function, and he parroted the governor on the $3.6 billion budget deficit he solved. Well, I quizzed Kurt Bauer that day. Kurt Bauer was unaware that the state of Wisconsin had somewhere to the tune of like $16 billion in debt. Thought that was all gone. So, I mean, this guy is supposed to be a captain of industry. Kurt Bauer heads up the biggest lobbyist group in the state of Wisconsin, and he either doesn't know or is willfully ignorant of the fact that under Scott Walker, the debt continued to rise, kind of like under Donald Trump, the debt continues to rise, and the Republicans spend like drunken sailors and then blame it on the Dems when the economy crashes.
And then, of
you
course,
remember Jim Doyle's deficit, don't you, Don?
Well, how could we not forget? 844-967-2789. Last couple of minutes, our pal Pizza Box Mike, you will have the last word today. Thanks for calling, my friend. What do you got for us?
Hey, Michael.
Well, I like when you guys get all fired up like that. You know what? It makes my case for hard left or stay home. You know what I mean? Because, there's things that Evers could do. And you're right, this is a lot of this, but you know what, there's things that he could do like Foxconn. He's got to do something about that. I mean, cut our losses on that.
Yeah, Foxconn's a disaster.
Hang that on boss's neck. Hang it on his neck. Let's play the boss game, okay? So it's not a registration hike. It's a boss tax, right?
Right.
And those holes in the road, those aren't Scott holes. Those are boss holes, man. Nothing worse than a boss hole, if you know what I mean.
If you thought Scott holes were bad, wait till you hit a Voss hole.
Right. I mean, he looks like a boss hole, doesn't he?
But Pizza Box, I love you, man. Yeah. I know you're a passionate man. Do you agree with Crudy that Evers should have vetoed the entire budget and stuck it to him and just let the cards fall where they may?
Well, see, I wouldn't just do that. I'd get in the ring and challenge him to come in and fight for the state. I mean, there's a lot of things you could do as the governor. You could get the media attention by showing you have spine and fighting for the people at the bottom. That's where it starts, Evers. Come on, man. Work with me.
Right on. He's got Dom's vote for re-election.
I'm voting for Crudy.
4 more years of nothing. I'll do nothing for another 4 years, Dom. Will you vote for me. I want to
Depends.
thank all our...
Will you come on the radio?
Doubtful. I want to thank our two fine guests, not including the governor, James Santelle, former U.S. attorney, and our good friend Jessie Opoien, opinion editor at the Cap Times. I'm back, baby, stepping on toes again. Can't wait to do it again tomorrow on these fine radio stations. Joe Costa's Amaripa. The Joe Costa Show is next. Please stick around. I know you will.
Can't keep me here, Chief.
Maybe I'm not going to keep you in here. Maybe I'm going to blow your brains out.
Well, no, I'm no lawyer, but I do believe that's a violation of my rights.
I will pay for the legal fees, I promise.
Danny, this isn't Russia. Is this Russia? This isn't Russia, is it?
Nah.
I didn't think so.
You concerned about speaking up at work? Do you feel like you have no say in your day-to-day work routine? Join Teamsters Local 344. Call 414-258-4545. Get a seat at the table. Join your brothers and sisters in